Ooh.
Haha, I've
Ah,
rotated the screen the wrong way. I'm so sorry. Right, okay. Let me see if I can put me back the right way.
we could do it this way. This will be. We can say you're in Australia.
Exactly. Yeah. I like it. Right, okay. 1 second. Right, so now I have to remember how to get back to the video and then turn it round. Right, hold on. How are you?
Very good. How are you doing?
I'm not too bad. I'm really nervous though. I can't believe that I'm speaking to Eric Dubay. This is crazy. I've been watching you for like 6 years, and then suddenly here I am talking to you. So thank you.
Definitely. Thanks for talking to me. No, thanks
You're
for all
welcome.
your great messages and stuff. This is how I get in contact with the people I like to interview is they contact me, they have great questions and great energy like yourself, and those are the kind of people I want to talk to.
All right, good, good. Okay, well, I think the first thing that I think I mentioned on my little list was chemtrails, and the reason that I think that this is a good topic to discuss at the moment is because it just seems like because it's summer here as well in Britain, so what should be blue sky, we often get obviously a lot of cloud, and it seems to be just we're getting hammered at the moment with chemtrails. And I know a lot of people in the past have tried to sort of say, oh, no, 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 it's normal, it's contrails. I don't think there's any kind of denying it now that it is chemtrails. You only need to look up and you can see the clear difference between a real, normal kind of trails coming out of the back of the plane to the ones that are being deliberately sprayed. And I think there's a multitude of reasons for it all. It's either sort of dimming the sun or maybe cloud seeding. I know like the temperature here today is really hot, but it is still really cloudy. So I guess they're trying to like stop the heat from escaping. So it feels a lot hotter. So it's obviously all to do with the climate change, climate crisis
Mm.
agenda, obviously feeding into Agenda 2030, which is just around the corner. I don't know what it's like where you are in Cambodia. Do you see this quite a lot? Or is it less over there?
Does seem a little bit less. At first, I was hopeful that there was none because I didn't see any for a week or
Yeah.
two, but then I started seeing some, so they do
Yeah.
make it over here a bit. Um,
Yeah. I
and
suppose
yeah,
they've got to
I
do it
do
a little bit everywhere.
wonder
Mm.
the reason and if it's different reasons for different places. We've got all these different words for it now, like weather modification,
Yeah.
geo-engineering, cloud seeding, like you said, and then there's the conspiracy term chemtrails. Uh, and then there's contrails, which everyone knows about. But for
Yeah.
some reason, even though there's government documentation about weather modification and geoengineering and cloud seeding, if you say the word chemtrails, often people will poo-poo that and act like those don't exist, even though, I mean, your government's telling you these programs have existed since the 60s. They used them in the
Yeah.
Vietnam War and since then. And one thing I wonder about is like if these things exist to create weather, when we're having, really big bad weather events, A, are they happening because of these cloud seeding geoengineering programs? And B, if you have this technology, why can't you use it to divert them or lessen these superstorms that seem to be happening? There was just a
Yeah.
huge one that hit just last month in the Pacific. It was called, I forgot the name, Sinlaku. Um,
Okay.
it was just really big, and any Pacific Island nations were just hit. I know people living there. They said they've been there over 20 years, and this was the worst storm ever to hit their
Yeah.
area. And so you wonder things like that. It's like, so you knew it was coming. Isn't it possible to use these technologies for good, or do you only
Yeah.
use them to create storms and in like war settings like the Vietnam War? Um,
Yeah.
why not use them to divert them or to lessen the effects of certain superstorms? But that would be asking too much of our evil governments, I think.
I know it's always got to be like for not never for good, is it? It's always got to be for some sort of weird corrupt agenda, never for the benefit of people and society. It's like the wildfires and things like
Hmm.
that as well. I feel like some of this, the fact that it's so hot here as well in the UK, like all the grass is kind of dried out and all the fields are drying out. We've had a couple of fires around near where I live recently as well. And, you know, I know that some of them have been set on purpose, but on a grander scale than that, you know, around the world, you do hear about the, you know, the wildfires that have spread. And you see it all the time when I'm sort of doom scrolling on my phone, like obviously because of the kind of things I'm interested in, I always get all the stuff about, you know, conspiracies coming up. And for the most part, I do think that a lot of it is true, and things sort of pique my interest. So I'll like watch videos and listen to what people are saying. And you know, it's all, you can see that, you know, this weather modification is a thing, and they are able to do it, and they obviously do use it to their own advantage. Like I say, whether it's the, you know, the cloud seeding, making it rain and causing massive typhoons and hurricanes and things, or whether it's, you know, to dry everything out and cause fires at the other end of the spectrum as well. So I know, like, another thing sort of on the back of weather modification, I was going to sort of say to you, Eric, we here in the UK over the last year or so, people have been seeing aurora borealis, you know, like the northern lights, which is never been possible before. And so from what I understand, this is all to do with HAARP, who I also think are on the back of the weather modification as well. Do you know anything about this? Like, you know, is there anything you've come across?
I've looked at the HAARP a little bit. It does stand for High Altitude Auroral Research Program, so it would make sense that, you know, there could be a connection there. And it's sending up a bunch of high energy waves into the ionosphere, I think they call it. And supposedly it's part of weather modification as well. Dr. Nick Begich wrote a book about it. He also speculated that there was some potential mind control aspects involved as well. When you're shooting that kind of much energy into the atmosphere, who knows what kind of effects it's going to have. Same with the chemtrails and everything. I mean, you put all this these heavy metals and chemicals into the air, and then people are breathing that. And then if you've got on top of that these electrical signals that potentially could excite the heavy metals that are now in our bodies through the chemtrails or through vaccinations or in the food or wherever else.
Everywhere now.
Certainly, it's certainly possible that they could be manipulating us emotionally or psychologically, even through these kind of things. It's not my forte. I haven't looked into it quite as much as some other people, but like I said, Dr. Nick Begich, and there's definitely books and videos out there to look into on that. People are curious, and yeah, the aurora appearing for no apparent reason is suspicious, similar to the chemtrails, for example. Really, everybody knows contrails, and yeah, a plane goes by and there's going to be some steam or whatever out back, but they disappear pretty quickly, versus crisscrossing chemtrails that look like a checkerboard that stay up there for hours, and then eventually they just like turn into a mass of white cloud cover that you can't see anything. I mean, that's clearly something different than traditional contrails, but still you got your skeptics, conspiracy skeptics, that want to claim that none of this exists, and it definitely does. The only question is how much, you know, how deep does it go? Is there a mind control aspect to all of this? How bad is it for our health? What are they actually doing to the weather? Those are kind of the questions I have. Not, is it happening? It's definitely happening.
It's definitely happening. Yeah, like you say, the sky is white, you know, a lot of the time here as well, not blue. So you can sometimes see clouds, but then the sky is white. So even if it was contrails, which it is not, if it was that, then that's a problem too, isn't it? You know, so people start trying to push back and say, oh no, it's just normal emissions from the planes. Well, no, clearly this is something that's new. But as I say, I just feel like at the moment it's happening so much, and the skies are such a mess. It's so destroying as well. You know, you sort of, when you're aware of it as well, you look up and you started off with a really nice blue day, and then the next thing you know, or you can just, you know, see these planes in the background, and the next thing it's all white, and that's it, it's done. And it's just, I feel like it's just really spoils your life, you know. And you also, like you say, you wonder what on earth they're doing, what it's all about. Obviously, it's a lot of different things. The whole, like you said about the microwaving the sky or sending out the, what was it, the sort of agitating the ions or something. Sometimes the cloud formations would suggest that that is what they're doing as well, because they look sort of like bumpy.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah. There's often really weird looking geometric
Yeah.
type formations that do look like it might be some kind of wave energy that's causing them to look that way. It wouldn't just naturally, I wouldn't think, dissipate in that way.
No, absolutely. They're not natural. And I think you can tell a natural cloud as well for the most part too. So I don't know, and I just think they don't even care anymore at the moment. There's definitely more people talking about this online than I think ever before.
Yeah.
It does seem to be quite a key subject. And even when you sort of go into the comments, you're always going to get the trolls, of people pushing back, calling everybody conspiracy theorists. But I think for the most part, there are a lot of, general public going, actually, no, this is a thing now. And, I am bought into this. And what do we do about it? And that's the big question about everything, isn't it? What do we do about it? And I think at this point, I just feel like they are just so kind of cocky about it that they just don't even care that people know. Because what do we do about it other than go down to every single airport and start demanding that all pilots come out and interrogate them, what you're doing. And what do we do? We just got to kind of sit and watch it happen until what? This is what concerns me.
Well, definitely talking about it, spreading awareness of it, that's step one anyway. And it feels like step one isn't even complete when we've still got people saying conspiracy theorist, it's not real. And if people are able to do more than that, cheers to them. But because of this whole slave system, who even has time to affect change in all these vast areas? There's so many different areas, from banking to you name it. Just there's so many things, so many fronts that we're being assaulted on. There's only so much time in the day that even your most enthusiastic activist can only do so much. I get accused of it all the time too. Like, Eric, you didn't talk about this. You haven't talked about that. It's like, okay, I mean, I've tried to talk about pretty much any subject that I can think of that I can research and make videos or whatever on. But even I'm getting accused of, oh, you're not doing enough about this subject or that. So yeah, I mean, and it's true. Sure, I wish I could do more, and I wish everybody could do more. But yeah, we're part of this slave system, and we're being attacked in all fronts to the point that I'm not pointing fingers at the general public that they're not doing enough, especially as long as they're aware and speaking out. I think that's that's the baseline that we can do, is research this stuff and talk to people about it. And then I also think that there's like a tipping point that you need to get to. There's certain times when things are more effectual than others, in meaning, like, maybe right now we don't have the power to do something about it, but maybe in 3 years there's going to be some event that everybody notices, and then suddenly chemtrails are front and center, and it's like the whole world's attention is focused on it. And at that point, if we have enough awakened people active, maybe that's when like the tipping point happens and we can actually affect real change. So I think that's a key player in these things too, is like everything in its own time. Everything kind of has its time. And it's like the evil forces and the good forces kind of vie for the preparation. And then when the battle's actually on, that's really the only time when change actually happens.
Yeah. No, I can see that. And I don't think it's fair for people to say that you don't, you're not talking about this, that, or the other enough, Eric. I don't think there's a single topic that you haven't touched on at all. So people just need to go and look at your video library on YouTube or wherever, and even visit your webpage to see what you've done. Like you say, you can't talk about every single thing. Like when I was preparing for our chat today, there's so many things that I can think, oh, let's talk about this, talk about that, but you've only got so much time. And, like you say, I think the place we're all at the moment is just a place where we're creating this space where people, or like-minded people, can come and talk to each other. And we can start sort of, just being aware and maybe trying to wake a few other people up and just making this group bigger and bigger all the time until that event, which I do agree with you there. Do feel like there has to be some point, some tipping point where everyone's just like, no, there's no choice now, but to kind of, you can't hide from stuff anymore. We have to do something. Now, I don't know what that's going to be. I've got a few little ideas of my own, but they might seem a little bit out there. But I mean, 2030 is coming around the corner really quickly, and I can't help but wonder what they've got up their sleeve or sleeves. You know, I try not to sort of dwell too much, because when I first fully woke up, shall we say, or became aware of the level of corruption that we do live under, it was back in 2020, and you know this, I've told you this before. I was always somebody who was quite interested in conspiracies, not just conspiracies, but, you know, just the mystical things. You know, even from a kid, I was always interested in ghosts and aliens, and I always questioned the moon landings and things like that. So I'm not really somebody who, you know, is switched off by conspiracy theories. I tend to find that whenever someone says, oh, you know, there's a conspiracy around this situation, it does tend to be true. Like, does, you know, when you start looking into things, you think, oh, okay, whether you want to believe it or not, it does tend to have a large element of truth to what people say. And so in 2020, when the whole pandemic happened, maybe we'll talk about that in a minute, but I'm sure we will. But yeah, that's what got me fully awake to everything, and that's where I came across you as well. So, you know, and then everything's like domino effect. Start to like see that absolutely everything we've been told is a lie. So yeah, it's a great awakening. It's quite painful.
And just to be a good detective, just to actually, you know, get a well-rounded view, you have to look at more than one side of every issue. If all you ever hear is the mainstream issue, and you know, everyone says that, you know, COVID is so bad for you, and it's not the common cold, you definitely need vaccines, and then somebody over in the corner here is saying the opposite, why would you ignore that someone saying the opposite? Well, let's see what they have to say, at least.
Yeah.
And yeah, oftentimes whatever the alternative perspective, that's pigeonholed as conspiracy, but it doesn't even have to be that. It's just a different opinion, or it's different information that you're not getting.
Yeah.
And to ignore it is ignorant. And so
Yeah.
people that just go along with whatever they think the consensus already is, that's not doing your due diligence if you're trying to get to the root of things. So for me, I always approach things like a detective. And the only way you're going to get to the bottom is to look at all the evidence from all angles, from all sources. And that's your first job. The first step is to do that. Not, oh, what's the expert say? Oh, the expert says ABC, so ABC's true. I'm done. I know the truth now.
Yeah.
That's, you know, that you're going to get deluded if that's your basis of truth. The only way that you're going to actually get to the real truth is by you being the arbiter of truth yourself, meaning I can figure this stuff out. You know, don't rely on experts or authorities or the mainstream or consensus. Rely on yourself and do like I'm saying, get a wide view of everything, and then start to see what makes sense, you know, what doesn't make sense. That's when you can actually get to the bottom of things. And like you said, oftentimes when you do this process, you find that the conspiracy theorists are usually, you know, yeah, more on track than the mainstream.
More often than not.
Yeah.
I know, like you say, using your own discernment sometimes, but I suppose, you know, a lot of the time people are so trusting of the, you know, what we get told by official channels, and they just, you know, that whole term conspiracy theories, we've all talked about this before, it's got a bad reputation, hasn't it? But
I mean, it came from the CIA. They purposely created this term to pigeonhole alternative research so that it just sounds like it's got this air of, you know, falsity, like, oh, that can't be true. And you can just throw everything into that basket. But like you said, I mean, most things, there's great quotes, I can't remember the exact quote, but it's talking about like, anytime I see the majority running one way, I know that it's time to look the other way. I've always felt that way before I even heard quotes saying stuff like that. And it's just always kind of resonated with me. And hey, if I start running the other way and I see like, actually, this isn't really panning out, I don't think this makes as much sense. and then I go back to the mainstream explanation of something. Okay, maybe sometimes it is, but you won't know that unless you actually start walking down these other paths and see for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that completely. Yeah, I think that's something that you learn from like quite a young age as well, I think, as well, sort of not to follow the crowd necessarily. And if you do hear somebody sort of saying something alternative, just have a listen. It's like you said before, kind of being able to hold two things, two or more, you know, one, two or three things at once, and just kind of weighing things up for yourself and making sense. And it's okay to change your mind. You know, there's nothing personal in any of this. It's okay to change your mind. I mean, even down the last 6 years, particularly in the first year of kind of like looking into, well, the truth about pretty much everything, I found that my kind of mindset on a few things changed a few times. I can't think of really great examples, but like maybe sort of saying, you know, at the very start of COVID, I believed it. I did think, oh, you know, there's a big scary virus going around. And then kind of when I started to wake up to things weren't quite right, I'm wondering if there's a virus at all, but maybe, okay, maybe there is a little virus. It's not quite as bad as everyone's making it out to be. To now knowing from good sources that there isn't. There is nothing. It was completely the bogeyman. You know, so that kind of evolution, if you for want of a better word there, you know, kind of to where I am now, and then you find out other things along the way. You know, you just not just about COVID, but just about who's in charge of these psyops and the reasoning behind it. So your knowledge becomes deeper, and then to a point where it's then difficult to have a conversation with somebody who is just not anywhere near, if at all, awake to anything. Like me and my husband have a conversation. He's very much on the, in fact, he's on the same wavelength as the likes of us. Lucky for me, you know, I don't know what I'd have done if I'd have had a partner that just did not see things the way that I did. I know of the couples that are like, or families that lived together at the time, and some people were kind of questioning the narrative back to COVID, you know, and they were falling out about it all. And, you know, that you've got those, that must be really hard for people, you know, when you've got that, your other half just isn't with you at all there. So I'm really lucky that mine is like that. But yeah, just sort of going back to the what we talk about, that kind of, this is the thing, this is what happens, isn't it? You start talking about one thing and then your head goes to like loads of other stuff. But I think I was saying something along the lines of the level, the depth rather, that you go into sort of rabbit holes and into like learning information about the past and certain things that happened and is fake, or you know, you can't really talk to sort of normies anymore. Is that the right word to use? I
You know
don't
how to
really
use
like
that
saying
word.
normies. It makes me feel like I think I'm some sort of, you
I
know,
know.
special
Yeah,
person. I'm not. I'm curious.
yeah. Mainstream minded people. I don't know what to
Yeah, that's
refer to
better,
them as
isn't it?
either. I'll use that term as well.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we've covered the chemtrails, and I just wondered if this one might be worth talking about. So, jet fuel conspiracy. I'm going to assume you've come across pretty much everything that I'll bring up today, but this has come onto my radar recently. I'm pretty sure I've come across it before, but I've seen a couple of little short videos on this jet fuel conspiracy, and I'm thinking, God, I'll have a look at this, because, like we said before, you know, you can't just ignore stuff. It's like I'm at a point now, I'm just going to watch anything and see what I think. And I have to say, yeah, there definitely does seem to be some truth to this. And I'm just going to guess it's to do with feeding into the sustainability element of 2030. So, like, we're all led to believe that jets and planes obviously take copious amounts of fuel. I can't remember the exact numbers, but we're supposed to believe that, you know, they take gallons and gallons of fuel. Where does it go? And you know, watching these videos, I'm thinking, yeah, it's a good point. And then there was the suggestion about once a plane gets to a certain altitude, sort of the mechanisms within the engines can sort of take over, and it can sort of produce its own propulsion, if you like. And I don't know if you know anything about this. Please take over this conversation if you do.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked into that one as well. So, as I was just saying, I look into the mainstream explanation and I look into the conspiracy explanation. And for this one in particular, I haven't come to conclusion. I
Okay.
think there's some things that the mainstream kind of makes sense to me, and some things it doesn't, and I could, you know, see where they're coming from on the opposite side. And
Yeah.
rather than concluding, I've at the moment anyway, I feel like I don't have enough information or like expertise or like actual access to the inner workings
Yeah.
of planes for me to say one way or the other. But what I have seen is that they claim that the fuel in planes is mostly in both sides of the wings, and then there's a tank in the middle, so to like
Okay.
distribute it. But like the idea seems to be that, oh, it's filling up the whole wings, and even if it was filling up the whole wings, it doesn't seem like there's enough. But the tanks that I've seen, they're not like wing-shaped tanks. They're um, I don't know, they're just kind of like a geometric shape, something like this, where I would think they might be at the base of the wing. They're certainly too large of tanks to be at the end of the wings. And I've also seen photographs of planes in wrecks where the wings have been half ripped off, and there's not like a tank with a spilling oil out or anything like that. And the amount does seem quite a bit like the commercial liners, it's somewhere between 5,000 to 50,000 gallons, and then big jumbo jets is up to like 88,000 gallons. That does, if you look at what a container that holds 80,000 gallons or 50,000 gallons look like, it's huge.
Yeah.
And it's like, where are they fitting that in the planes?
Yeah.
And then if you think of the motive, yeah, if they can charge 10 times more because they claim that it's so much fuel being expended for these long flights that it gets passed on to us. That's possible. But also on the other side, there's people that work with these all day. There's people that their whole job is just fueling them. And I haven't necessarily seen like them come out like as a whistleblower. I fuel planes all day. I've been doing this for 30 years. It's a big conspiracy. I haven't actually seen anybody like that. The only people I've seen making these claims are just kind of conspiracy-minded people, not experts. Again, like I said, you can't necessarily trust experts or whistleblowers or whatever. But it would lead some credence because, like I said, that's kind of where I'm stuck, is that I don't have enough expertise myself in the inner workings of planes or fuels or the fuel tanks to say definitively one way or the other. But I will say, having seen the conspiracy angle, I am skeptical, but you could convince me either way on this one at this point.
Yeah, and I think I am where you are. I think it's just one to sort of hold, isn't it, and just see, you know, yay or nay. Like you say, if you don't know the inner workings of a plane, but it is interesting, isn't it? And I just wonder what that's all about. Okay, in the grand scheme of things, I guess, and where that's going to fit in at some point, I imagine, in the future. So I thought the next thing maybe be a good idea to talk about COVID. Okay, only because at the moment a certain Mr. Fauci seems to be on TV. I mean, to be honest, right, I don't watch TV anymore. I don't watch the news. This is just what I'm seeing on social media. Okay, but only again in our sort of circles, not generally from my friends or anybody on there posting anything about it, but just isn't he kind of being interrogated at the moment, and he's pleading the Fifth Amendment. He's not answering any questions about how he advised everybody to behave during COVID. So from what I understand, like there are people in our circles that are really celebrating this and thinking, oh, you know, this is great. It's getting out into the public eye. And now everyone's going to realise that, you know, COVID was a hoax. I don't think that's a thing. I don't think that's true as much as I wish that it was. What's your take on all of this? Is he the sacrificial lamb?
Yeah, it does seem that way. And it doesn't seem that the people who actually took his advice and took these harmful experimental vaccines, the ones who should be the most upset right now, seeing the way he's handling this situation, I haven't heard anything from those types of people. They're just tight-lipped at the moment. It's the people who didn't take the vaccines, who knew all along, that are still active in spreading this information. And so, yeah, I would have liked to have thought that when it comes out on the mainstream media, there it is,
Right.
your doctor, godly figure that told you to take these experimental vaccines. Now, 111 times he's pleaded the fifth in his, on the advice of counsel, I'm pleading the fifth. He answered nothing, not a single question. So he's just there as a body saying absolutely nothing, letting his lawyers do everything for him. And I mean, as one of the guys questioning him said, he's like, well, you don't have to say anything. Your silence speaks volumes. The fact that you won't answer to any of these things clearly means that you know you have something to hide. It means that you know that if you were to speak off the cuff about any of these things, you'd just be incriminating yourself. So clearly he knows very well, the jig is up, and this is his way of trying to mitigate that as best as he can, the way his lawyers have told him to. But, is this actually going to mean arrests? Is he going to see jail time? I'm not seeing that as the case. Bill Gates, all these other people that were involved, they're all fine, So, yeah, it's good that it's getting some press, I guess, but I don't know if it's going to lead to any kind of awakening or any kind of arrests. It seems like it's more just a little bit of political theater.
Yeah, just trying to make everybody feel like something's getting done. A bit like 9/11 when there was a whole investigation into that.
Right.
Of course, that wasn't a genuine investigation. That was all going on outside of those circles.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of us, those who wanted to have a look and see what really happened there. So yeah, that's obviously something that's going on at the moment. But in relation to just viruses in general, back in 2020, or maybe sort of a bit later on, because I didn't really cotton on to the whole pandemic at the very start. I mean, to be fair, like, it didn't take as long as some people. Maybe about a month to 6 weeks in, I'd started to think, well, this just isn't right. Anyway, sort of missing out lots of boring things to tell you there. Eventually, I did just get to a point where I realised that, there was no real pandemic. And a couple of the people that had kind of convinced me of that was a lady called Sam Bailey. I don't know if you've ever come across Sam before. Okay, so there's her and her husband, Mark. They're from New Zealand. They actually are on YouTube. So they used to work for the allopathic medical industry. And I think her husband, Mark, was always a bit skeptical about kind of viruses in general. And he started to look at sort of research, shall we say, and who was backing the research. And of course, it's always the pharmaceutical companies with a lot of money to sort of gain on the back of it. And so the kind of theory around viruses, the model around viruses just didn't add up. And he wasn't the only one sort of kind of, speaking out about this. So he wasn't the only one who cottoned onto this. There were other people as well that just were questioning virology as a whole. And apparently, like, no viruses have ever been isolated, ever. And when they do it, it's always loads of sort of jiggery pokery with monkey kidney cells and, cultures that they sort of bake here out. It doesn't really make any sense. To me, you should be able to, like, there's a virus. There you go. It's under a microscope. There you go. And that's how it differs from this virus, and this virus. And they've never done that. So on the back of all of that, sort of Sam and Mark decided to step away from allopathic medicine, and then now sort of more kind of homeopathic and natural remedies. So they actually do a lot of fasting whenever they're poorly, whenever they're sick, and same with their children. They don't drink tap water. I think they drink distilled water. So, they're sort of more inclined to sort of promote more natural healing, but they've done a lot for, sort of truthers, if you like, and people who are interested in knowing how viruses or what really makes you ill. Mm-hmm. And they're more like to do with terrain theory, if you like, as opposed to contagion. And I think I'm more that way inclined, just based on what I've seen in real life as well. If you sort of, some people still think that you can spread flu or you can spread colds around each other. And it maybe did appear to be, it does appear to be that way if you're in the same sort of household or you're in the same sort of environment, like at work, in an office and things like that. But ultimately, it's to do with your terrain, your environment, the things you're breathing in, the things you're eating, the things that you're drinking, stress levels, anything like that that can make you detox, essentially. It's your body just trying to make you better, getting rid of bad things, you know, cleaning up cells, you know, and just functioning the way it should, as opposed to just sneezing and giving someone else a disease or an illness. Because I often used to think, well, why don't everybody get ill then all at once? We should all be just completely wiped out all at once, shouldn't we? So anyway, they do a little bit of work with a guy called Tom Cowan and also the guy called Andy Kaufman, and they all are singing off the same song sheet. They're brilliant, to be fair. I actually think they're really good and helped me quite a lot back when I started to realise, you know, kind of what was going on. And I was really happy when I found out that you can't get ill from someone else. I remember thinking, oh yeah, brilliant, this is good. We don't need to be like worried about viruses and things like that anymore. That's actually brilliant. And once we do understand how the body works and what really makes you ill, well, we can, you know, we can work with that, can't we? But no, you try to say that to certain people and they just don't want to know, because obviously the man in the white coat has told them that, you know, this is how illnesses really work, and don't just ignore all that witchcraft. And so, yeah, I wondered if there's like some sort of conversation around that. What do you know about sort of virology? And
Right. And there's, like you're saying, there's other people in white coats. These are actual doctors. I made a documentary about the subject, actual virologists coming out saying these exact things, that it's the terrain, it's not the virus and all these kind of things. So, and you know, you show that to your typical mainstream person and they're still like, but I believe the mainstream white coats. So even like expert opinion isn't the thing that seems to get into these people's brains. It seems to be whatever they perceive as consensus, or so-called consensus, whatever they perceive as the understood wisdom. They just don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to be anywhere on the fringe. They don't want to have to defend anything that isn't what the television tells them, something along these lines. Because it's weird, like we were just saying before, it's like, oh, they need the experts to tell them. But there's so many experts that came out during COVID and since then saying, you know, the vaccines are experimental, they're dangerous, there's stuff in here that shouldn't be, and you know, viruses aren't contagious in the way that people are saying, and that the terrain is what's important. And as you said, that's clear just based on the fact that not everybody gets it all at the same time, and that you can, depending on how healthy you are, you can be in the same room as people with all of these diseases that they're catching, but then you're not getting them.
And so you're completely fine.
Yeah, so I'm on board as well with the idea of the terrain theory, and that it's our, you know, terrain meaning our bodies, how well we take care of the system that is to be infected will determine whether or not we're actually infected. So it's like through fasting and diet and exercise and other aspects that we know are healthful, if you're able to maintain your system in such a way that you kind of create a shield around yourself, you know, I still think there are some communicable diseases. You know, there is bacteria and fungus and things that could contribute, but viruses specifically, that seems to be a bit of a phantom, in the sense that viruses are what the body exudes after it's been affected by some ailment, not the thing that it intakes and then suddenly, oh, now I've got this, I caught the virus. You exude, let's say, the virus after your terrain has been dampened enough to the point that it can breed within your sickened system, let's say. And fasting is one thing I've done. I mean, I always, that's number one. If I'm sick, I fast, and so do all animals in nature. And it's kind of normal. Whenever you're sick enough, you're probably not going to be super hungry. And you're certainly not going to be hungry for unhealthy, heavy foods. You're mostly going to want liquids, which is, if you're going to have anything, that's what you should have. And that's why you like soup, chicken soup, so to speak. But like, yeah, no, you don't need
No chicken
no
soup.
chicken, just soup,
Yeah.
just broth is fine, or just liquids. Fruit or vegetable
Yeah.
smoothies are great. But for the very beginning, you don't even have to worry about that. Just drink water until you're actually hungry, and
Yeah.
that's what a reset is. Think of your body as like a mechanical system. And if you're just constantly putting sludge, which is what food ends up being throughout your whole digestive tract, and there's never any time in which there's no sludge being digested and excreted from us, then never does your mechanical system get cleaned, nor does it rest. So the only time that can ever happen is if you intentionally fast. And it doesn't really count unless it's been about a full day, because it takes quite a long time for everything to get through the system. So intermittent fasting is a good, stepping stone. But even that, you're not really hitting the 24-hour cleaning cycle. And the best time to fast would be when you're sick. I mean, it'd be best if you did, say regular fasts so that you don't get sick. But I mean, even myself, I do get a cold once in a great while. And if I do, then yeah, I'm not eating for a while. And so when you fast, it's like a system reset. Water, it's the universal solvent, just cleans everything out. And also your body has like systems so that when there is nothing happening, it excretes certain things that it's not able to when it's in the process of digesting.
Right.
So actually giving it that opportunity to excrete certain things, you have to fast for that to be able to happen.
That to happen.
And so along with that, I recommend enemas you can do with just water. I don't do coffee or any other things, but distilled water or purified water, just room temperature. And that's a great way to get rid of stuff that's impacted in your bowels and in your intestines for years. If you've never done it before, the first time you do it, it's going to be like, okay, I'm glad that's out of me. And then once you've done it a few times, it's not as bad. You can tell that, oh, I've cleaned my system up a bit. It's not nearly as bad as it was before. So if you've never done it, it's
on the back of what you said ages ago. I remember my husband and I went and had it done, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I didn't really know what to expect. Yeah, it's worth doing.
Absolutely.
I don't see why not. Like, definitely people should do it.
And
I don't really know what else to say on the back of that, but on what you said, I echo that. Yes,
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, and it's just more water. So I mean, like I said, you're fasting, you're putting water down this way. Well, shoot some water up the other way, and it's just even more cleaning. I do neti pot as well, salt water through the whole sinuses. Clearly,
I don't know how you do that. I will not do that. I don't know.
No.
Does it not does it not make you feel a bit funny? I don't know.
At
I think
first,
I'd gag
for sure.
or something.
Yeah, you got to take it like a deep breath and just let it go. And yes, the first few times it is just like my first time. I was like, I gotta breathe. I like stopped and it does feel weird.
I think I would do that.
Once you get used to it, it's a piece of cake. It's nothing. So yeah, just clean everything out with water every once in a while, and then when you start reintroducing foods/liquids, it's best to do liquids, so like smoothies or juice or watermelon or high water fruits like watermelon, grapes, those kind of things are a great first thing to eat. And if you're sick, these are the kind of things that you'd want to be eating anyway. You don't want to, I got a cold, I got the flu, whatever. You don't eat for a couple of days and then you're like, starting to be hungry, and then you eat a pizza and a burger or something. You don't want to do that. That's just reintroducing all the crap right off the bat. And the body's like starving at that point. And so you don't want to give it a bunch of sludge. You want to give it the nutrients that it's wanting, and you'll really feel it in those moments. So I mean, and they'll taste great, because if the longer you go without having any juice or food, the better it tastes when you finally do. And so even things that might not normally taste that great to you, like a grape or some watermelon, it's probably going to taste like heaven if you've done 3, 5, 7 day fast. And that's the way to go. So slowly introduce high water fruits, and then maybe salad if you want, and then eventually you can get back into whatever you've been eating. But personally, I would always recommend it to be vegan. Plant foods are just so much better for the body than animal
Yeah,
foods.
definitely.
There's this whole carnivore thing going on now where people
And I've seen that.
the way to eat is to not have plants, and that they've demonized plants and claim that plants have oxalates and all these other things that they've just taken a bunch of scientific terms and been like, these are bad now. Suddenly we can't digest oxalates because some doctor said so. But I mean, unless you're having like a bunch of spinach smoothies and spinach salad every day, you're not going to overdo the oxalates. It's not a big deal. And the carnivore, it just seems like this progression that I've seen since my teenage years, where they're trying to get people to, they're demonizing carbohydrates. They're demonizing one macronutrient. So there used to be the Atkins diet, and then they called it the keto diet, and the paleo they called it at one point, paleo primal, and now it's carnivore. Now it's like the final form of this crappy diet is called carnivore, where it's like all carbs are completely demonized, all plant foods are completely demonized at this point. But I mean, keto, the term is for ketosis, which is this unnatural way of digesting food, right? The natural, so there's 3 macronutrients: carbohydrates, protein, and fat, and they are in all foods. People like to be like, meat is the protein. They don't even use the word meat anymore. They're like protein. It's like there's all 3 macronutrients are in everything, just in different ratios. So like there's more protein in spinach than there is in most meats, and there's carbohydrates in things that you don't think they're in. You think that just pasta and rice or whatever they claim are carbohydrate foods are carbohydrates, but like I said, it's in everything. And fat as well. There's fat in leafy greens. There's fat in everything. And so to try and demonize one of the macronutrients that's in every single food anyway, first of all, is just dumb. It doesn't make any sense. Secondly, the body naturally digests in a ratio of about 60 to 80% carbohydrates. Carbohydrates is what we run on. It's simple sugars. Fructose is the best one. Fruit sugar. I mean, that's good for you. Sure, white powdered sugar and certain other kinds of sugar aren't the best for you.
No.
But I'm not promoting that you eat a bunch of cakes and donuts or anything. Again, cakes and donuts, that's mostly fat, but people act like cake and donuts is carbs. Oh, that's carbs. But then there's protein in there too. They'll only let protein be in meat for some reason. But anyway, so the body naturally digests about a 60 to 80% carbohydrate, 10 to 20% fat, and 10 to 20% protein ratio naturally, because that's how we eat normally. And you have to purposely eat in a non-natural way to get that non-natural ratio, which puts your body into ketosis. And so your body will be into ketosis if you lower that natural carbohydrate intake and you raise, which will always, if you eat low carbohydrate foods, they're going to be higher in protein and fat. And so you do that for a while, and then your body goes into this unnatural mode of digestion called ketosis, where instead of burning simple sugars, carbohydrates right off the bat, it stores those and then burns fat instead. And of course, for fad dieters, this sounds great. Like, oh, so I just eat a bunch of fat and then I can start burning fat. And it does for a while, actually. But the problem is, A, there's carbohydrates in everything, like I said, so you can't eliminate them completely. And B, the body naturally wants those simple sugars and carbohydrates, sucrose, fructose. And so, they're just in everything. So, and you're going to crave them. The longer you go on these keto diets, the more your body's going to want those. And you should give in eventually to the cravings, because you're just ruining your system trying to go in this unnatural digestive method for eons. People go as long as they can, and then they finally cave in and eat a bunch of pasta. And then that's like I was saying about fasting and then eating a pizza right away. You don't want to do that. But that's what they'll do, because they're trying so hard to have this unnatural diet until they finally just go back to the way they should be eating. And then that's bad for you, because you've just flip-flopped your whole system. And so then they end up yo-yoing and not knowing what they should do. Versus if you just go the correct way, which, I slowly went from standard American diet to vegetarian to vegan to I've had stints of raw vegan. And then I've gone back a bit. I like to say that I look at it like a mountain. I've been to the top of the mountain. I know what it feels like. I know what it's like. For my own reasons, I like to be near the summit, but not at the peak. For example, if you're just eating raw vegan food all the time, it's hard to be social. It's hard to go out. You can't go to restaurants really. Yes, your energy is going to be brimming. And honestly, at some point, I was just like, I don't even like I wanted to see what it would be like to just, let's go full force. And I had so much energy that I didn't even care to be that energized. I actually like the feeling sometimes of just having some rice and vegetables and just, oh, all right, I'm tired. I didn't get to sleep as easy at night because I wasn't feeling tired, or just brimming with energy all the time. But most people are nowhere near the top of the mountain. No. They're at the bottom with a carnivore diet, thinking that they're at the peak somehow. Dr. Michael Grieger, for example, has done a meta study on the leading causes of death. The 14 of the 15 leading causes of death are all linked to animal foods and can be reversed by removing them. I mean, this is a meta study. This is taking all of the scientific studies available on, and he did it for vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian, and standard American. And you can watch across the board, the highest metrics were vegan, and then a little bit less for vegetarian, a little bit less for pescatarian, and less for standard American diet. And from my experience, that's exactly how I've felt on those. I started by getting rid of beef, and then pork, and then chicken, and then eventually all seafood except for fish, and then got rid of fish, and then started getting rid of all the milk, ice cream, butter, all those kind of things. And then eventually tried raw for a while, which is also great if you can do it maybe for stints, or if you're trying to heal, or right after a fast, like I'm saying. That's great. And you couldn't convince me that I should be eating a bunch of meat and dairy and that I'm going to be healthier. And it's just not out there. Like, for instance, the people will point to Inuits or Eskimos. They live, they're much more overweight. They have higher incidence of cancer and heart disease, and on average die 10 years earlier than their fellow Canadians who have access to regular fruits and vegetables. Or people will talk about like the Maori Africans, or something. No, I can't remember the name, but starts with an M. They eat like beef and blood and milk, and that's like their main diet. But they're not, they're not living, into super old ages or super healthy. Or, for example, there's a bunch of vegans that are in their 70s or 80s, and you could just look at them and you wouldn't know. You'd think they were in their 40s. Or you can look at I can't think of any names off the top of my head. The 70 or 80-year-olds. Mimi Kirk is one. That's one. Annette. Shoot, I'm not going to think of it. Annette something. She's like 80 years old. Her husband was a butcher, and he never went vegan or vegetarian, but she did for like 40 years, to the point that I think he passed away now. But she's in her 80s. She looks amazing. And they would go out and they were laughing about the fact that people would say, "Is this your daughter?" Because she just looks so much younger than There's a channel called The Healthy Life with
Okay.
Marcus and Kara Rothkranz.
All
Marcus
right.
right now, he's 63 years old. If somebody said he was 40, I think you would probably say, yeah, sure, he looks 40. I mean, he's got so much energy. He's a long-term raw vegan, versus carnivores. Like these carnivores have only existed for a few years now. There's a couple doctors, I guess, that claim it, but there's no like long-term, like I'm saying, people that are in their 80s that look 40. There's nothing like this for that diet.
Hmm.
So anyway, I could go on about that one for quite a while, and I
No,
already
no, I agree with you. I'm a vegetarian, and I said currently, a couple of days ago, I watched one of your videos on veganism. I can't remember the title of it. I was just kind of scrolling through, and it was one that I'd not seen before for some reason. Because obviously you've talked about veganism before. You do talk about it quite a lot, and I agree with you. Even as just a vegetarian, and I think I've lived in a bit of denial when it comes to sort of eggs and milk, particularly. And that video, I highly recommend people watch it. It really is an eye opener. I was devastated and sort of a bit ashamed of myself as well for sort of ignoring the reality of what animals really go through. Obviously, the whole meat thing. I don't eat meat. I don't miss it. Don't miss it at all. Don't think I was ever, even as a child, I'd eat a bit of chicken. See what I've just said there? A bit of chicken. That's a chicken. That's still an animal, isn't it? People say it as if it's like, oh, it's just a little bit of chicken. I've just done that myself. But yeah, I wasn't a massive meat eater. And if I ever did used to go out for food with the family or whatever, I would always tend to pick the vegetarian option. Not because I was necessarily veggie, but I just fancied it more than kind of eating meat. Anyway, I'm kind of going off track a little bit now, but that video about veganism, because I've always been a little bit like, should I be doing this? Maybe this is the next step, like what you say about kind of climbing up your mountain there. And it's so hard to do it, isn't it? Like because there are secretly eggs in everything.
mm-hmm.
For example, a little bit of milk in everything, things you don't think of. But watching that video, I was in tears. I just felt so bad, like in the way that animals are treated. And like you say, there is no right way and no good way of killing animals. It isn't at all a good thing to do. Why do we do it? Why do we do it when we can live without it? But you do get your staunch kind of carnivores, like you say, oh no, we know people. They're like, oh no, I like my meat. I like my meat. All right. Well, could you go and kill something? Could you do that if you really had to? Because that's my question to myself when it came to sort of, choosing to be a vegetarian. Like, I don't look at a sheep or a pig or a cow and think, yummy at all. Like, and of course, there's that picture the photo that you put on the video with the face with all of the raw meat inside of it. That's quite a hard hitting picture, but it's a good kind of image because unless we cook meat, we don't want it. So, and like I've said to you before, in previous conversation, we don't have. I question whether we're supposed to be doing it anyway. Our teeth aren't made to sort of rip flesh, and neither we don't have the talons or the claws or the brute strength either to pull an animal down and tear it to bits. I don't miss
Our
meat at all.
intestines aren't made for it. Like our entire makeup is that of a frugivore, herbivore, not a carnivore, omnivore, which is what even mainstream says we're an omnivore. I mean, we
Omnivore.
can digest it, but it doesn't mean that we're built for it. Yeah, our teeth, the way they are designed, the even things like the way we sweat, like our intestinal tract, you name it, it's we're biologically built to be frugivore, herbivore, not
Okay.
carnivore, omnivore. And I mean,
Yeah, I can believe
it's
that.
just become so normalized that I would imagine, like, if we were in the state of nature before everybody was thinking they were omnivore, carnivores, we'd be out here picking berries, right? There, stuff grows on the trees, there's roots in the ground. So you're eating things out of the ground, you're taking plants, fruits, seeds, nuts. Imagine if everybody was just eating fruits, vegetables, roots, seeds, nuts, and then this weird guy comes along and he's like, I'm gonna kill that cow and eat its muscles. and eat its flesh parts, and then oh wait, before I kill it, I'm gonna take its milk. Oh wait, I'm gonna rip the calf away that's trying to
Oh,
drink
that
its
I
milk,
know.
because only female cows provide milk, and they only provide milk when they've had young, just like humans. And the only
Right.
type of milk that we're supposed to drink is human milk when we're babies. Uh,
Yep.
there's an enzyme called lactase that you need to be able to digest lactose milk, and our bodies stop making it at about 3 years old. So after we're
Okay.
3 years old, literally everyone is lactose intolerant.
Intolerant.
They'll even say something like 50% of the population is lactose intolerant. The reality is 100% of human adults are lactose intolerant. It's just you won't get that label unless you have symptoms from having too much of it. But we're
Yeah.
all literally lactose intolerant as adults.
Yeah.
So it's really weird to rip a baby calf away from a cow and then, oh, I want that. I want that milk. And then to kill the mother, and I'm gonna eat or steal the unfertilized menstrual cycle of a chicken,
Yeah.
which is an egg. So you steal their periods and you eat them, and you're like, this
I
is
know when you
normal.
put it like that, it's horrendous, isn't it? Like,
It's
who
just
did think,
weird.
well, I'll have that?
and yeah, it's the natural food of things like weasels and ferrets or something. It's not the natural food of humans. Um,
No.
so, but it's been normalized into us so that we just think that it's weird not to. Oh, vegans are weird. It's like,
Yeah,
there's nothing more natural than being a vegan, honestep. It's exactly what our
absolutely.
bodies crave. And yeah, I quickly, like I said, I had kind of like a step-by-step process getting there, but it was pretty quick because I could see
Yes.
the effects of it, and I felt bad. Like I've cried at slaughterhouse videos myself, and
Oh,
didn't want to be part of that. Was actually what started the whole thing to begin with. And then I found out that it's actually healthier to eat this way. It's like it's win-win situation. What are we even doing here?
absolutely.
It's healthier and ethical to eat this way. Um,
Yeah.
but also, I would recommend people don't beat yourself up about the journey, or about, like, if you go out to a restaurant and they sprinkle some Parmesan cheese on your pasta, or there's some butter in your potatoes or something. Like, you know, in my 20 years vegan, I've also, I haven't been.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll say I'm 100% vegetarian because I am 100% vegetarian, but I'll say
Yes.
99% vegan because there are some instances where, yeah,
You
some
can't get
animal,
away from
I
it.
know some animal foods have slipped in, or, it's just difficult to remove them for whatever reason. Um, but as long as you're doing your best, you're at the peak of the
Yes.
mountain, like I'm saying, that if we were all there, this would be a vegan world, and it would
It
be much
would.
easier to be 100% of everything at that point. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with that. And it's funny, isn't it? The whole like talking about food and what we should and shouldn't eat. If you were to compare yourselves, because I think a lot of people will try and use this thing as well. They'll sort of go, oh, well, it's just a natural process in life. We should definitely eat meat. Look at lions and tigers. Look at all the carnivores there. But obviously, there are herbivores too. But people will try to sort of put themselves in the same kind of camp as the big predators. And I've often questioned sort of not just about the food thing, but just us as human beings. This is kind of going to go on to our next topic, I'm thinking, but just, in terms of how we fit on Earth, because I don't like to think that human beings are a cancer to the Earth, which is what, sometimes we get told, oh, human beings, we shouldn't have the Earth. We don't treat it well, we ruin it and things. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I think it is more the system, the corporate companies that run the place that put us in a situation where we have to kind of live the way we do, which isn't sustainable in a lot of respects, is it? But I do wonder what we are here for, kind of how do we get here, what are we here for, what should we be doing in our lives, because it certainly is not being part of the slave system, and it's certainly not here to sort of destroy the earth. I think with that is all wrong. And if you were to sort of compare yourselves to animals, kind of they do seem more native to Earth. They sort of, I believe they are sentient. I told you before, I have a cat. She's lovely. She's definitely got feelings and can feel pain, but thinks nothing of killing a mouse and bringing it to me or a bird or whatever. It's awful. So the conscious thing about what's she thinking there, and when she dies, like what will happen to her? Will she be judged? Will she go to have that life review and the soul trap? It's like, oh, you've got to go around again. And maybe or is it good that she's been a really good hunter and so she gets to be a bigger of a hunter? Whereas for us, we're all told that if you get that life review, I hate that idea. You get that life review and it's like, well, you could have done better there and you've hurt this person or you did this and you didn't do this. What, how does that scale kind of, how does it all fit together? There's like a million questions all in that one, that one kind of analogy, but
Absolutely.
What's your take on that sort of thing?
The very existence of the food chain itself to me is quite a mystery, especially if your paradigm is that this is a school of life, or this is, a benevolent, wholly benevolent and loving God created this reality for us to experience life. Well, then why is the base system for survival here that we have to take the life and feed on the energy of other life just to sustain our life? In other words, it's a predatory system by nature where everything just has to constantly kill and eat the life out of everything else so that it can stay alive. So it's like a hierarchical food chain where the most egregious predators are the winners, I guess. And does that mean that, let's say, the life review, is God this kind of psychopathic being that's like, you killed 25,000 animals in your lifetime. Great job. You created more loosh.
Loosh, there you go, loosh,
You're the loosh winner. Great job. Or is it the opposite, where, no, you're not supposed to? And if it's the opposite, then it's like, well, why did you create it this way?
Exactly.
Everything's eating the life out of everything. So I'm not even convinced that God is going to be happy that I'm a vegan. I'm actually more convinced that God is some kind of non-ethical or unethical or evil entity that's not going to be happy with the very little amount of loosh that I've created. And I even think of now thinking along these lines, I think of veganism as like a big middle finger up to the creator, being like, you want me to be part of this stupid food chain, and I mean, I have to be to some degree, unless I can be a breatharian, but I don't think that's for everyone. I think some people, special people, have been able to do that in history, but very few. Most people are just going to die. You have to eat the life out of something. So there's a hierarchy. There's a hierarchy, clearly a hierarchy of beings with, say, humans on the top and fruit, plants on the bottom, and insects are in there, and then various forms of animal life. If we can try to stay towards the bottom, I feel like we're being more ethical than if we're, obviously most people would say that cannibalism is unethical. So most people agree that staying too high up the hierarchy of the food chain is not a good thing. But a lot of people will settle for upper middle and think that they're doing well, or I would recommend being a little lower. And a lot of people also trash on vegans for not being 100% vegan, and or even if you're eating vegan, they'll say that monocropping or various ways of producing your plant foods ends up killing animals. Therefore, you're still killing animals as a vegan. It's like, yeah, but less of them and indirectly. The definition of veganism isn't don't ever harm an animal ever, no matter what. It is as far as practical and possible to not consume animal products. So as long as you're doing whatever is possible and practical in your life to lower the consumption as close to zero and to live lower on that hierarchy of the food chain, that's what is considered being vegan, not all or nothing. It's not this religious thing where you're either doing it or you're not. And if you messed up once, then it's over. So you're just going to go back to being an omnivore or something. That's a wrong way of thinking. That's why I like to talk about it like a mountain or something where you try to be towards the peak, or if you're talking about the hierarchy, well, you try to go towards the bottom of the hierarchy.
Yeah.
The other aspect of that we were getting into was the actual nature of the food chain and surviving here itself, which is something I think about all the time. They talk about the soul trap, where you're talking about the life review. There's quite a lot of implications to that. The more you think about it, like, is there one creator that created this place? And if so, is he kind of like schizophrenic? Or are there multiple creators, say, or or is there levels to this? Like the Gnostic interpretation would say that there's levels. There's a monad, like the ultimate God, so to speak, that is so far removed from this reality that it doesn't even really have any effect here. But that its daughter, say Sophia, created this realm, and then this realm was given to her bastard child, the demiurge, and then this demiurge created the archons, and the archons are the like Nephilim of the Bible, or their offspring from mating with humans, created the giants. There's all this story. It's quite a story. I don't.
It's quite a story.
I don't necessarily buy the story, but it's just interesting that a mythology like this even exists, and that it does. It delves into these certain metaphysical questions that I don't find any other religions really even talk about, including the New Age. So I'm very interested in Gnostic thought, or at least the idea that that this place isn't completely created by one monotheistic, all benevolent, all loving creator. Like I don't see that that's even a tenable position.
Well, it seems obvious, doesn't it, that it's not. Otherwise, we would not be living the way we do. We wouldn't have the species killing each other the way that they do. One of my other questions to you is going to be: do you think that there are other creators, or other gods, if you will? Because I know that story of the Gnostics. I've read your book as well. It's really interesting. Asked it about a little bit as well, so that's quite good for others to sort of to be interested in that as well. It's a really good book.
Spiritual Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah. And it really does. It's very thought provoking. But like you say, it is quite a story. And I always think of things in allegories, a bit like the Bible and other religious texts. This is where people who follow a specific religion might get a little bit triggered, but I do think everything is in allegory, so that everyone understands an interpretation within the kind of realm that we live in. That it's metaphorical, isn't it? A lot of the stuff that we're told, and then but I often wonder what the real reality of the monad and Sophia and the demiurge and the what is that really? Because obviously, as somebody who knows that the Earth is not a globe, it clearly is flat. So therefore, you can't deny it's not a big bang out of nothing. It is created. It has to have been created by something way bigger than us, bigger than anything that we can comprehend. So the idea of there being several, I don't know how many Elohim. You'll have to remind me, Eric, where I've got that word from. It's like, I don't think it's from the Bible, is it? I think it's a different religious text that says Elohim is plural. They created the earth.
Yeah,
is that right?
Elohim is also in the Bible, though. Yep.
Oh, is it? Right. Okay. Right. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, plural gods, and that would make sense to me in some respects, because I think if you look at people, there are different people, like different characters. Good, bad, different varying degrees of, good, and for the most part, I think most people are predominantly good, and most people just want to live a nice, happy life, not affecting anybody else. But of course, look at this state of the world now. You know, who's the people who are happy to do the work of the archons, if you want, like, or the people who are really running the show. How would you even be that sort of person? How would you be somebody who wants to spray the skies, who's happy to do that job, for example, let alone be Fauci and, you know, lie to the world? And Bill Gates, you know, let's not forget lovely Billy Gates. But you know, those sorts of people, they're like so different to anybody that you come across in the street, aren't they? So I wonder if there's different types of, or different creators, and we're literally just like a stage creator. You know, we're there to create their entertainment. Loosh, for example, because where there is obvious beauty to this place, it is hideous as well. Like the whole, that I love that analogy that you give about you know, the amount of good. So you, like scales, good here, but the amount of bad, like, that can be inflicted on someone, for example. What's that? And you say for an hour you can have the best pleasure in your life, whatever you want, you can have for an hour. And but then on the back of that, you've also got to have an hour's worth of the worst possible torture or treatment that someone could inflict on you. Even 1 minute, never mind 5 minutes or an hour. The balance isn't right, is it? It's always more favored to the bad.
Yeah.
And of all of the
Pain is more painful than
yeah,
pleasure is pleasurable here.
pleasurable.
The depths of pain that we can experience versus the heights of pleasure are not balanced. People will say that, oh, you need to have the good and bad. It's all about free will and all that. But if that was the case, then at the very least, you could have it be, say, 50-50. But it's
Yeah.
not even close. As you were saying there, like, if you were able to be given 1 hour of the most pleasurable experience in your life, whatever that could be, the birth of your child, or, you know, some great adventure, or the best food you've ever eaten, and then the worst pain possible, which is going to be stuff like medieval torture methods. You know, I don't even need to get into how terrible some of those are, but people can imagine for themselves having to endure even, say, 1 minute or 5 minutes of that just so you could have that 1 hour. I certainly wouldn't. I would not. Those tortures are so torturous that there is no pleasure that compensates for it. And I mean, why does pain at the level that it exists even exist at all? They say that the reason for pain is as a signal so that we know to, you know, oh, fire, hot, remove hand from flame. All right, well, you could just have it be a very dull, you know, numbing sensation where it's just like, oh, that's unpleasant. I'm going to stop that now. But it's not. If you hold a lighter under your, you know, heart, it's absolutely
and then the
torturous.
aftermath of that as well.
Exactly. It lasts for ages. It's not just some signal that then goes away once you read the signal and remove your hand. No, it just goes on and on. And so that gives credence to these ideas of loosh, or as the Gnostics call it, light energy. They said that they're feeding off of our light energy. So if there's entities that actually feed off of negativity, well, that kind of makes sense then why there would be so much pain and evil and suffering in this world. And I mean, things like sickness and death itself, or parasites, or natural disasters. Like, if you were an all-loving, benevolent God, you created your world here, why would you then be like, I'm going to make this system where things get sick, and then they grow old, and then they die, and then everyone else dies as well. And I'm also going to create parasites. These are things that they can't live on their own. They need to have a host, which is all these beings that I've created, and it will feed upon their life. It will stick itself into them. And then even simple processes like our peeing and pooping. It's really gross. Like, why does that
Yeah.
happen? Or eating itself. Like I said, the
I was going to
food.
say, why do we even have to eat?
Yeah,
Yeah.
why eat? And then why does it come out smelling and looking disgusting?
Mm.
And it's bad for us. We can't, you can't just
Yeah.
like shit in your house and leave it there. You gotta get rid of that stuff. It's bad for you.
Get it
It's
out. Yeah.
unhealthful. So I mean, why is there this odd system of unhealth, negativity, toxicity? Everyone is going to die, and
Yeah.
then you don't know like it's this big mystery. What happens when you die? What happened before we were born? There's this like memory wipe or whatever you want to call
Mhm.
it, in the sense that we just show up here, we don't know anything, and then one day we die and we don't know where everybody goes. And so we just have
Yeah.
these stories that we make up and these religions that we make up to try and satisfy our this mystery that we have. But
Mm.
even with all this, as I've said, I'm lifelong agnostic, because I don't think when you're in this body, in this physical world, there really isn't any way to have a concrete knowledge of what
Right.
happened before and what happened after. So my detective stance, that's what I think everyone is and should remain,
Yeah.
is a detective. And when it comes to your final moments, and if you pass on, if there is an afterlife, I think you should remain a detective and look at whatever happens next in that
Yeah.
sense, not in the sense of, oh, I'm just going to believe whatever happens. Because a lot of people will say that their grandmother comes and, their dead grandmother comes and meets them as they're dying, or
Yeah.
they see an image of angels or Jesus or whatever other religious figure, or their dead dog even will come to them. Um, and this is the idea of the soul trap. How do we know that this is actually what is presenting itself to us?
Yeah.
Could this just be some kind of shape-shifting entity that is presenting itself as whatever is our most trusted or most loved figure, so that we will believe it, and then love bombing us into believing whatever? And if you look at accounts of near-death experiences, this seems to be exactly what happens.
Yeah.
Is that whatever your most trusted or loved being is going to come, and then he's going to lead you to this life review, as we were talking about earlier, which people talk about. I saw my whole life flash before my eyes.
Yeah.
It seems to be a thing that happens during near death or potentially actual death experience, is your whole life flashes before your eyes. You see a replay of everything you did. And not only that, they'll often say that there's like a judge and jury, or there's these beings that watch this with you, and then they're very judgmental about it. They'll take certain points, usually the negative points, almost always. Well, is this what you hear? They don't talk about, oh, you did good here, this great job,
No.
you had compassion for no, they just pick these certain instances in which you didn't do the best, and then they start condemning you for them and getting you to agree to being rebirthed here again. So this is what the idea of a soul trap
Yeah.
is that perhaps we're being coerced and persuaded into coming back here. And this is what like Buddhism and Hinduism, they say that there's a reincarnation cycle where we just keep on coming back here over and over again until you have one perfect lifetime, and then
Perfect.
you're able to escape. Well, and they call this a school, and the whole purpose is to evolve your state of
Yeah.
consciousness so that then you can get into heaven. Now I'm back to the creator again. Why would you create such a system? If it's a school, how can you memory wipe everything and then you start right back as a child knowing nothing, and you're supposed to
Yeah.
somehow get it right this time? That's like you
Yeah.
get to the end of your schooling, you're just about to get your degree, someone clops you over the head until you forget everything, and they're like, yeah, you didn't get an A+ this time, you got an A-, so try again without remembering anything, and then try to get an A+. You don't get to maintain everything that
No.
you've done.
Anything.
No. So it doesn't make sense that it's a school in that sense. It's more like a prison sentence, and the only way to get out is perfection. And so if you're the creator that created this system, what you create imperfect beings that have to go through an imperfect life in your little school of life so that they can
Yeah.
get into your better place, heaven or whatever that you created also. Why not just create heaven and perfect beings? Or, you
Yeah.
know, or at least a place that's way better than this, like we were saying, where the pain and pleasure ratio isn't so out of whack. But it seems like uh, we're here in some kind of lower realm, and we're lower beings, and
Hmm.
there's some kind of requisite, unknown again, because all the different religions have different things that they say. Like
Yeah.
Christians will be like, well, you just have to pray to Jesus and accept Jesus into your heart, then you go to heaven. That's not what Buddhists
Mm,
say. Buddhists say
no.
something different. They say that you're supposed to remove all material desires and attachments to this world, and that's when you'll be able to move on. Because nobody knows. You know, other religions have other things that they claim that that's how you move on. And you know, or atheists, they don't think there is anywhere to move on to. And
No.
we really don't know because we don't have access to this afterlife realm if it exists. So that's why I say agnosticism is the most honest and truthful position. And within the
Yeah.
agnosticism, yeah, I love reading the holy books and exploring the different religions, but I haven't found any one that makes me go, oh, I'm going to believe in this one to the exclusion of all others because it makes the most sense to me. Even if it
Mm.
makes the most sense to me, I still don't have proof of it. You know, I don't have the experience of knowing, like with the flat Earth, for example, as we were talking about. That's something that you can experience. You can do
Yeah.
experiments. It's common sense. It's right here in front of you. You can observe it, test it, repeatable. That nothing in the afterlife is that way.
No.
So to act like, oh well, I know that Christianity is the true religion. No, you don't. I mean,
You
you
don't.
can you can say it all you want and delude yourself into thinking you do because of this or that experience, but it's not an afterlife experience. Even people that have near death experience, that's a near death experience. You haven't had a
Yeah.
death experience yet, so you
Exactly.
still don't know, right?
Exactly. Because that, for me, when it's like a near-death experience, it's almost as if the person, like, let's be right. No, no, you don't really see anybody that's over the age of 100. Okay. So say that the average, I know the average life is like, what, 75, 80 or something like that. Most people have a lifespan, don't they? It's mostly the people that have had like, or been sort of in a serious accident or died on an operating table or something before that point in time that have this near-death experience where they're literally forced back. A lot of people say that they wanted to stay where they were.
Mm-hmm.
It was so peaceful. Never felt love like it.
Yeah.
Best place ever. Don't want to come back, but you've got to go back. So they're made to go back. But like if you've reached the actual end of your life, real death, what then?
Mm.
So do you get that life review where you then reincarnated because you've got to do it again? Like can't come back as Sarah or Eric. You're going to come back as someone else, and that terrifies me as well because how do you know what life you're going to have? That's quite scary. And some people reckon you choose your parents, and I don't think so. I don't think that's the thing. I don't know what happens. Of course, I don't know what happens, but I tell you, I do wonder for someone like me and probably you and the likes of us, when it is time for us to, have that life review, and you say about, a dead loved one comes to you, or maybe an alien or Jesus or whatever you believe in. Well, if you're like us and you know that is probably a guise, whoever it is that's right there, I don't know why I'm pointing upwards, I don't know why I'm doing that, but like whoever it is that you go to, I wonder what they're thinking right now. They're thinking, what do we do with these people? Because they're just not going to believe anything that we. What can we be that's going to make them go back? Or will we be lucky enough and they go, oh, just give up, let them go through, go on, let them go to the good place. That's what I'm hoping anyway.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be fooled by your lies anymore. I'm going, and
Right.
hopefully the next place would be the good place, but not
Yeah.
somewhere worse than here.
Why
So
even agree to watch this life review with these judgmental beings in the first
yeah,
place? Are you forcing me? Am I handcuffed in this
yeah,
courtroom, or can I just go out? I don't need your judgment. I
yeah.
did the best that I could. I'm happy with it. I don't need
In
you
this,
to tell me one thing or the other.
yeah,
Yeah, and
I
the
did the
other thing,
best
like you
that I
said,
could.
almost every near-death experiencer says that the other side is so great. they just get and they'll even be talking to Jesus or something and be like, oh, don't you want to go back and see your parents or your children? And they're like, no, like whatever that place is like, it's so much better than here, but they don't want to come back. And to me, that, wow, like if I have that experience, then I'm going to be even more convinced of like, what is this place? Why is this place? If the second you leave this physical body and you're just a consciousness, just a spirit out in whatever the afterlife realm is, and it's just so loving and so beautiful and you're so free and it's all bliss and positive emotions, what is this place? What are we doing here? You know, that question just comes back and back. And a lot of people, mostly religious people as well as New Age people, they don't seem to have that question. They have this like positive, happy delusion where they're happy to
because it's
ignore.
comfy.
Right.
Because it's comfy. And they don't want to think about things in great detail. A lot of the things that we talk about in detail, just unpicking stuff, whether you like it or not. I don't like the idea of what might happen when we die. I don't like the knowledge that the world is corrupted to well, point blank, but it's corrupted in every single facet. Like everything that we have ever been taught and told since birth is just bullshit. And that is awful, and people don't want to know. Because I do, sorry, I'm going off topic a little bit, but I do think that a lot of people, okay, who aren't necessarily in our sort of camp, if you like, I don't think people are as dumb as what some might think. I think people maybe do suspect that there is a level of corruption going on that they don't want to recognize, because it means that if they do, they've got to act a certain way, they've got to change their life, and they're not ready to do that, and they're worried about what other people think, or you know, like I say, just it's an upheaval, isn't it? It's not an easy thing to be somebody who is curious and critical a critical thinker. It's not easy, and it's not a choice that you make. I don't go looking at things and think, right, what conspiracy can I make up here? I'm really loving this. I love finding out that the world is horrible. It's great. No, it's not. I would love to be wrong about pretty much everything. I really would. I kind of got lost track of what I was kind of saying there, but I think it was to do with, people not wanting to sort of delve into what really might be going on in the afterlife. They're just happy to pray to their their god or whatever it might be, and believe what their religious texts say, rather than kind of understand the actual truth and what might really be going on. Because it's comfy. It's that comfy lies camp, isn't it? And
I think you're
where
right.
does it get us?
If
Nowhere.
reality is unfairly skewed towards the negative, as I'm saying it is, as the pain and pleasure ratio proves, then to acknowledge that is to be a pessimist. And to be a pessimist is a negative state of being that I think a lot of people don't want to accept. They don't want to put themselves in there. It just seems negative. It just seems you're being negative. And I think there's quite a bit of programming to prevent people from seeing that reality. And religious being one of the main programs that puts this super positive spin on what I would say is a quite negative reality.
Agreed.
Again, why I think that Gnosticism and other such trains of thought resonate with me more as a realist than all these other religions that I think are overly positive. They're putting too positive a spin on what's actually happening here. I mean, some people will straight out say this is hell. We're in hell. Yeah. And to me, I mean, that makes more sense than heaven. Like we're certainly not in heaven.
Oh, no.
Maybe we're in some kind of purgatory in between.
That's what I
think. Makes sense. Yeah. But there's certainly got to be, well, I sure hope there's somewhere better than this. If the only thing that exists is like
just going round and round. Oh, it's awful, isn't it? I mean, even if you have like a decent enough existence, you know, like
it's all going to be taken away from you. like the best existence you have the perfect partner, you know, they're gonna die, and so are you, and everyone you know. It's like no matter how perfect your existence is, it's all gonna be ripped away from you painfully at some point
Yeah.
anyway. And how is that positive?
I know, I mean, and life is short as well. And I mean, in some respects, I'm not looking to, get out of here anytime soon, but, you know, I'm sort of glad it is short in some respects, but I certainly don't want to rush back, I'll be honest.
Well,
But yeah,
the
so
idea of gnosis, and I mean, gnosis means knowledge through experience. And so
yes,
we have to have this time here to be able to gain that kind of experiential
yeah,
knowledge that potentially is the thing that will allow us to leave this soul trap. And
yeah,
so
yeah, okay, great, yeah,
ending it early, you know, as a lot of pessimists, some actually do, or some kind of
yeah,
fantasize about. I've never really been in that camp. I've always been in this
no,
detective mode, this kind of gnosis mode, where it's like, I'm going to use my time here wisely to figure out as much as I can so that I will have the best possible chance. You know, I think the only time you can say escape is going to be at the moment of death.
yes,
And so you're preparing yourself your whole life for that moment. I mean, that in a sense, that's when life begins. This is like the
yeah,
training ground for
mm,
some, I would say, you know, again, I don't know, but I feel like that's what is happening. And when you look at, you know, certain things like near-death experiences or out-of-body experiencers, um, who have talked about things like this, the way they talk about it, it does make sense to me that that would be what this is. It's like you know, they have the thing called a escape room. It's a entertainment thing that's come about recently. I think of this as like a escape realm, and like,
okay, yeah,
you know, the idea of gnosis is like when you're in those escape rooms, you're putting all these clues together, all
oh
these
yeah,
people,
they
how
are,
do I get
yeah,
out of here? Same thing. This place isn't the place to be. And some people
no,
don't even figure that out. They're in the escape room. They're like, this
no,
escape room is awesome. Oh, look at that. That's nice. I'll come back here. You know, no, they don't even get the game. The whole
yeah,
game is to figure out clues about how we can get out of
how
here
to get
so that,
out,
you know, once you leave the escape room, you're back in the real world.
yeah,
Potentially that's what's happening here. And we have to use gnosis to be able to leave the escape realm. And that wouldn't happen if you just end it right away without,
yeah,
you know, doing the
agreed.
work. Yeah.
That's quite a good way of looking at it. A bit more positive as well, actually. Yeah, detective. I like that. Mm. Do you want to talk about the old world? Because like with Tartaria and Atlantis, because I did watch one of your other videos and you did touch on it quite a bit, to be fair, about, you know, Atlantis, all about the North Pole and that sort of thing. But I think that the old world is quite interesting. I'm getting quite a lot of stuff coming up on my sort of, again, I'm going to call it doom scrolling, looking at things that are coming my way. There's a lot of talk about the old world, a lot of interest in that, with the old buildings that have been kind of repurposed. We're told they were built at a certain period of time, when really they clearly weren't. I think this is all quite interesting. It sort of ties in with natural medicine as well, you know, like the sort of sound frequency healing and what they potentially might have done with water. And then obviously the Rockefellers came along and got rid of all of that, wanted to use their petrochemicals on the back of their industrial waste and all that kind of conversation.
Mm.
Sorry, Eric, I don't know whether we need to sort of start that again, but
No. Yeah.
kind of
So I
like,
mean, the general view is that there's a thing called human evolution, and that they
okay,
have this timeline where we go from cave dwellers and hunter gatherers up to building small communities and structures to
yes,
eventually modern high rises and medicine and what have you. Um, But I mean, if you look into alternative research again, you'll find the exact opposite. It's more of a devolution, and that we
yeah,
potentially humans were much more evolved in various ways in the past, and we've devolved over time. Or
definitely.
perhaps even some kind of some wavy things like this, where they talk about
Mm,
resets, and there could have been cataclysmic events that caused such things. For instance, Atlantis was supposedly done away with in a flood, and there's
Yeah.
myths of a flood in the Bible and in like 600 different cultures throughout history. So there's this idea of a worldwide flood. It's replete. So it does seem like there has been a devolution, or at least some kind of resets, even as recent as sometime in maybe the 1800s,
Yeah.
where a lot of the buildings that now they're calling Tartaria or Old World.
Yeah.
I don't know about that term Tartaria, because Tartaria is like an old word for Russia, I guess. On old maps and globes, you can see
Yeah.
Tartaria in the area of Russia. But there's there's also work that says like the Scythians or the ancient Irish, the Druids, or the Atlanteans or Lemurians, and there's other civilizations that
Yeah.
in the past were much more advanced than our current one. And there's still, besides these huge buildings that we can't build, often with like giant doors that aren't
Yeah.
aren't the right size for today's humans, as well as these megaliths and pyramids that we can't build or lift to today. Like Baalbek, it's like at Baalbek there's stone pillars that are so huge that we can't lift them with modern cranes. And how did they cut them out? With copper tools, apparently, based on
Yeah.
the mainstream version. It's just not possible. And of course, the other thing that is replete throughout all cultures, throughout history, is giants, giant human beings.
Yeah.
But now again, it's a myth, just like the flood is a myth. But if there really was a worldwide flood and there really were giant human beings, well, now it makes more sense that there are these megalithic structures and these kind of resets. And so to me, that makes more sense. I tend to think that the megalithic structures and the pyramids were likely built by giants. I don't see
Yeah.
how humans were able to make such things.
Not
But
a chance.
it would make sense if they were giant beings that they could do it.
Yeah. And
Um,
what they were meant for as well, you know. I think you're getting on, well, I'm on the same lines as you. It sounds like there were several resets, because if you look at the Egyptian pyramids, and is it Machu Picchu as well, with the whole pyramid thing, they're very different buildings to, say, you know, like the big cathedrals that we see, that kind of Greco kind of architecture. So I feel like those things are from different timeline, different kind of eras, if you like, different resets.
right.
And I'd just be really intrigued to know exactly what things were used for
Right.
precisely. And that's why I sort of mentioned before about you know, the whole cathedrals with their acoustics and the big church organs or cathedral organs that they had that created such tremendous sound. Like, why would the people of that time have ever created anything like that? Why would they've had a need to do anything like that? So I don't, you know, like probably like you and other people, don't believe that that's, you know, that they were made by those people at that time, were obviously for some other purpose. And there is talk of it all being about kind of you know, sound frequencies to do with your health and your in kind of, if you're sick as well. They did something to the water that was again done with sound frequency. There's that whole schematics thing. I've seen those.
Yeah.
Cymatics, thank you. What schematics? Something else with it. Cymatics, sorry. Yeah, you see that with the card and the bits of sand on paper. When sound gets kind of vibrated, it creates patterns and things. So that's kind of a proven thing there.
Right.
But
So
then obviously the Rockefellers kit. Oh, go on.
yeah, if you vibrate certain sound frequencies, they actually create various physical structures, as you can see with
Yeah.
sound on the speakers, like they're showing. And it's interesting that these old world buildings, they had bells or organs or these kind of vibratory musical instruments. And you know, we're 90% water. So
Water, yeah.
So if these vibrations, these, and you know, if you can just stand, say, in a cathedral and have the organ or the bell vibrate your whole being, your whole body, then say, you know, just like the cymatics are causing symmetrical, beautiful designs to happen, who's to say that's not healthful? Like Masaru Emoto's work with water and consciousness, how like if you put positive messages on or into water, or you pray onto water, it will actually, at a molecular level, it will look symmetrical and beautiful, versus if you put negative energy towards it, it will be asymmetrical and ugly.
Right.
And so if there is a knowledge of this kind of vibratory harmonics, cymatics, and how it heals the body, I mean, to me, it makes sense. I just don't know exactly the inner workings, but it seems like these ancient people who are seemingly much more evolved than we're told, they probably did know such things. They probably had, you know, etheric energy as well, as we've seen in some of these old world buildings. I've seen they still have like the way the spires work in some of these Southeast Asian temples and stuff. There'll be like sparks and stuff just coming out of the way it's structured. So I think we've definitely lost certain technology in these resets. And you can see them, they're just like with horses and buggies in the 1800s trying to dig out some of these beautiful buildings. And that's where the idea of mud floods come from. I think mud flood is just a flood. I don't like the word mud flood. I think mud flood is what a flood is on Earth. When Earth gets moved from the flood, and then it covers up the bottoms of buildings. So that's what it is. It's not a mud flood, it's flood. The
it's just a flooding, and that's the aftermath.
Right, that's the aftermath of it. Yeah, and they're digging out, like, you know, stories under the earth as if you know, they were meant to be. Obviously they weren't there. And so I think that there's something to, like, they came upon these things, but we're told they built them. Every Wikipedia entry says, you know, oh, this or that architect designed this building and it was built in 3 years with, you know, with 1800s technology. Doesn't make sense. I think that there was much higher technology previous to this that was lost, and then the people that were survivors are just recovering it. Oh yeah, speaking of floods, I mean, there's like places like Yonaguni off of Japan, where there's whole temples or other places, even whole cities that are underwater, and they certainly weren't built underwater. So clearly, the sea levels have risen in certain places to flood them out. So, and it's interesting that it's like 70% of the Earth is covered in water, not land. I wonder if there was a rising of sea levels, if there was flood or multiple floods, how much was the land to water ratio previously?
I've wondered that before, because if you do look at the map of the world, why is there so much water compared to land? It does seem very disproportionate.
Yeah, like we're not, like, if humans are, if you know, if we're placed here by God the way most religions think, and like humans are the highest beings here, well, we live on land. We need land. So why would you create a place with 70% water and only 30% land for us? You'd think most of it would be land.
Yeah, definitely. And I often, well, before thinking about it to that sort of degree, I'd often think maybe it's to sort of just keep us all sort of confined, and maybe it is a little bit even now. I mean, if there was this flood, which it looks like there might have been, was it kind of done on purpose? Was it an accident? You know, was it a big sort of catastrophe that happened unintentionally, or was it intentional? Who knows? You know, for the purpose of a new reset.
Yeah.
So
was
there's
it
just so many.
done from on high, like Christianity says, or could it potentially have even been we caused it in some way, like human technology or human interaction with nature could have caused it? Who knows? Yeah.
Who knows? I don't know. It's very interesting, and like you said, all you can ever do is speculate and just try and keep digging and see what you can find, and like tie a few things together and make sense of it all. But you know, it's really obvious that there were definitely different, or several resets at least. I know, like before, I kept mentioning, or kind of chipping in with the whole Rockefeller intervention with the old world buildings. So from what I understand, so the reason I keep saying this is because obviously that rich family, why did they end up so rich? You know, keep unpeeling things. Why them? Like, what did they agree to? Who did they descend from? Why were they the family of choice? But either way, like, they are apparently the people responsible for getting rid of those old world buildings, and kind of you know, they wanted to introduce their own pharmaceuticals off the back of petrochemicals. So they wanted rid of the old world healing methods. But like I've sort of mentioned to you before, like how did they even know you could do that with petrochemicals? How did they know they could make pharmaceuticals, like medicine for us? Like how did that knowledge ever come about? You know, I have questions like that. A little bit like, you know, when we eat things, like why would you look at an animal and think, oh, I'm going to eat that? Or like you say, milking a cow or eating an egg. Like, where does this come from? Because I don't think that as a person, I mean, this sounds a bit of a weird thing to say, but without any of that knowledge, innately, I don't think that I would think to do those things if I was just on the earth wondering what to do. I don't know. Obviously, someone has told us stuff initially to get us to this point where we are now. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, and with their pharmaceuticals, they're essentially just taking herbs and various plants and organic substances that exist in
Okay.
nature, and then changing them to something chemical, to something unnatural, inorganic,
Right.
and then they can patent it. So then they become the owners of traditional medicines that would be cheap
Right.
and freely available to everyone. But then you change the name, patent it, can raise the
Mm-hmm.
prices. And I think it's much less healthy than the original version. So you
Oh,
add a
yeah,
bunch of
definitely.
chemicals and petroleum to your
Yeah,
herbs.
that's the thing
It's
for me.
like
It's the
it's going to be a
petroleum
lot better.
element of it. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't really like the idea of that. You know, when you used to buy Vaseline, I don't know whether you know what that is, but petroleum jelly, and
Mhm.
you'd read it and just be like, okay, but I don't know what that means. I'm sure it's okay. Is
Is
it?
it?
Trust it. Just trust it because I'm buying it from the chemist, so you know. So yeah, there's that whole thing as well with the resets and how it ties into sort of, you know, even things like that, from the Rockefellers to the medical industry, pharmaceuticals. It's just so entrenched, isn't it? This system that we find ourselves in. And I wonder what's next for
Mm.
society. You know, this whole 2030 agenda. Like I say, it's looming. We're nearly there. I do sometimes wonder if the elites, don't you just love that term? Yeah. Don't you just? I do sometimes wonder if they're panicking, you know, because I just think the world's crazy. Like the things they keep chucking at us all. How are more people not awake at this point to the bombardment of all the stuff that is happening in the world? Like everyone's confused. I mean, that's obviously the purpose of it, to keep everyone
Yeah,
divided and
it's
stuff. But
working,
you
right?
know,
Yeah, it's
in
working,
your
and
own
that's why
mind,
they're not questioning it. All these personal care products are another one, like
oh, I
whether it's
know.
shampoo, soaps, sunscreen,
Sunscreen.
lotion, yeah, anything you spray, anything you lather on your body. People should definitely take a look at the ingredients list of these things before you buy them. Oh, and
Yeah.
it's so difficult to find things that aren't full of like 50 chemicals, whether it's shampoo, conditioner, soap, you name it. I mean, I use very little. I don't even use deodorant. Those are hard to find. I use, like, when I buy a shampoo, I go through the whole shelf everywhere I can find until I can
Yeah.
find one that has the least number of ingredients
Hmm.
and natural ingredients that I can name. because usually it's just these long names of
Yeah.
chemicals that you don't know what they are. Why the heck are they in this thing that's supposed to be
Right.
clean? It's supposed to be for cleaning your body, or
Yeah.
and they even have things that like natural fragrance, for example, is in almost everything, but it's not natural and it's not good
No.
for you. It's just another word for a certain type of chemical. And these things have all been linked to cancer and various diseases. And like anything you put on your skin, it's like 70% of it sinks right into your body. So you might as well be eating it. And if you
Yeah.
wouldn't eat your shampoo, if it's not healthy enough to eat, then you really shouldn't be shampooing with it or lathering your body with these things. Sunscreen is a terrible one. So yeah, I absolutely, I try to use as few personal care products as I can get away with. Like I don't even use uh,
Shaving foam.
shaving foam or aftershave. I just use
No.
a razor, and I don't even use water. I used to use water. Now I just dry.
Right. Okay.
And
Hardcore.
yeah, and I mean, I'm trying to be as healthy as possible by
Yeah.
doing these kind of things. But most people, they're just whatever's on the shelf, whatever's
Yeah.
cheapest, or whatever's got the nicest looking label on the front. They don't turn around to the back to see the huge
No.
list of chemicals that they're putting into themselves. And then when
It's because we
they
trust what's on the back of it, or we trust that it's okay, that it's gone through certain regulations. But like you now, I and my husband also, we don't use half the stuff that we used to do. And like you, I'm a clean person, but I will try to use water. I'm not saying I don't ever use well, I do use shampoo, but I don't wash my hair every day with shampoo.
right,
It's
same,
only now when it's only like maybe once a week because I'm trying to do like food, like the food thing, like the vegan thing, just as little as you can get away with,
right,
really,
right,
knowing what you know. And sunscreen, we went up on holiday a couple of weeks ago to Spain, so obviously very, very hot. And yeah, because I'm quite dark skinned anyway, and I sort of built up a bit of a tan before we went. But I wasn't using sunscreen. I was sitting in the shade, being sensible, so I didn't burn. But no, I won't be using sunscreen anymore. Not since I've looked into that. That's horrendous.
exactly.
I can't remember what the figures are, but it's like at least tripled the number of like cancer cases since the 1980s when it came in.
Right. And
Yeah.
deodorants have been linked to breast cancer. That's another big
Yeah, and
one.
you can see why as
Yeah,
well, where it is, where you apply it, lymph
right.
nodes and things. So, and it's so upsetting as well
Makeup
because
as
as
well.
someone who like,
Women's makeup. It's terrible.
yeah,
There was a Miss America from the 90s. I don't remember her name, but she ended up getting cancer. She fought it, and then she spent, I don't know if she's still alive or not, but since then, just exposing these cancer-causing ingredients that are in all these cosmetics and makeups and stuff. If I remember, she would put so much on her face that the first place that she started, like she would have like this, and the part of your scalp here that's exposed. It was like the only part of her face that, or her head, that wouldn't have stuff on it,
makeup
and it
on it.
started having like sludgy stuff coming out of it. It was what
God,
tricked her to the idea that, oh, I've just been caking stuff over my skin so long that now it's like trying to detox itself out anywhere that it can.
right?
And yeah, even like oils or any kind of lotion, anything that you're slathering on your skin, you're not letting your
Yeah,
pores breathe. You're not letting your
breathe.
skin just beat the elements. I mean, sun is okay for you in smaller doses, and
Hmm.
sunscreen is not okay for you in any dose. So you're better off just being in the sun,
Being
and
natural
yeah,
and
and
being
limiting it
careful.
a little bit so you don't get super burnt or whatever. But yeah, as
Mhm.
long as you gradually, as long as you don't just never see sunlight and then go out
Yeah,
naked 24 hours a day, you're
yeah.
gonna slowly tan anyway, and it's not gonna be that big of a deal.
No, exactly. That's it. But yeah, the whole makeup thing. I know a lot of women who find these things out as well. We're all like really like, oh, boring. It means we can't put makeup on, we can't wear, I don't wear perfume. It irritates me anyway, to be fair. Whenever I used to try and wear perfume, I'd stop doing it because I'd find myself just like coughing quite a lot. Well, there's a blooming good kind of, example of why not to wear it. Obviously, body doesn't like it. I'm choking on it. Like,
Yeah, and
not even wearing that much.
there are natural makeups and cosmetics. The people
Yeah,
that know about this, they've developed brands. So if you're conscientious enough and you still really want to use them, you can.
Yeah, you
But
can find
you
them.
don't have to. I mean, especially from a male's perspective, all the, I've seen studies as well, and all the guys I know are the same. Like most guys prefer women without makeup anyway.
Yeah.
Women themselves, they tend to feel like they feel
Yes,
prettier
we
with it.
do.
But if the purpose is to attract a mate or to look good to the opposite sex, you're actually shooting yourself in the foot. You're better off just not doing that at all.
Well, that'd be easier. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah,
I think it's
easier,
obviously
less
not always to do
expensive,
that.
more healthy. Yeah,
Yeah, I think sometimes it's just for your own self as well, and it's something that you
sure.
sort of used to do. So again, it's that kind of change in your mentality when it comes to that sort of thing as well, and choosing more wisely. Because I do think it's quite nice personally when you want to go out and you think, oh, I'll just put a little bit of makeup on, make myself look a bit brighter. Yeah, I quite like that.
Yeah, and if you're
It's not
treating
really to
yourself,
do
you
with
can treat
covering up;
yourself with
it's
some
more
of
artistic.
the better makeup because they're maybe a bit more expensive and they don't have all
Yes,
the preservatives in them, so they don't last as long. But
yeah,
yeah, if it's just a little treat for yourself, okay, let's spoil
yeah, that,
yourself with natural cosmetics.
yeah,
Truly
definitely.
natural, as meaning because almost all of them will say on the front natural,
I
but you got
know,
to look on the back. If it's got 50 chemicals that you can't name,
I
well, that's
know.
not natural, but it can still advertise itself as being natural on the front.
It's so annoying because
Yeah,
you do, and it's like that with food though, like you say as well. You're sort of trying to find something to eat. It's not even food. Put that back.
right.
Like just end up eating actual fruit and veg. Like you said, I can understand why you do the sorry, I can't remember what you said. The raw vegetables and raw fruit. I can it's totally at least you can't go wrong with that. It is what it is. It's just you've got to pick up the whole organic stuff or but I don't even trust that to be
Yeah.
honest now either, especially when they're spraying as well. It's like,
Mhm.
well, how, what's in that? So does that even count now?
Right.
So yeah, everything just feels like really hard work.
It is. It is. Trying to be healthy in an unhealthful world.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, just sort of looking at time as well. I mean, I could talk all day, and there's so many things we could talk about, but I just want to sort of talk about kind of keep mentioning 2030 being this like the new world order as the target, and I can't help but mention this about the um, Project Bluebeam because I do wonder if they're going to do it, Eric.
Mm.
I think would you dare? Would they dare? Because that is a big thing to pull off, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder. So, Project Bluebeam is the idea that they could use holographic displays in the sky in tandem with an audio technology called voice to skull, where
Oh,
you hear, aliens or Jesus or whatever inside your head speaking to you. And then meanwhile, there's something happening in the sky to convince you, whatever it might
yeah,
be, because they've talked about both aliens and religious, like Christian rapture type scenario.
yeah.
Um, how would you even differentiate it from if there was a real rapture at that point?
I know. I know, but the likes of us know that that isn't a thing as well, isn't it? If you know that the Bible, what's said in religious texts, is not about external stuff; it's about internal bits,
Mhm.
internal things. You sort of looking within. There is no people will not like me saying this, but I don't believe that Jesus Christ was a man. Like he never existed. I think that's to do with our bodies, and there's that whole other conversation around that. And you definitely covered that before. So that to me, and like I won't believe in any of this anyway. But I do wonder if they're going to do it. And then there's that film that's coming out at the moment called Disclosure Day, and it's star-studded. I think it is out at the moment actually. It's star-studded, looks amazing. I probably would have wanted to watch this years and years ago. I'm intrigued to watch it now just to see what they're going to prepare us for because I feel like if you ever watched Contagion a few years before the pandemic came out,
Mhm.
it's the same story. So I
Right.
just wonder, Steven Spielberg has put this film together, and like I say, it's the big blockbuster. So I'm just wondering, like, is that part and parcel of this preparation?
And
They're sort of telling us what they're going to do.
they have been preparing us for this, aliens, this whole
Yeah,
idea of aliens and UFOs and outer space beings coming here since the 40s. Basically, they've been
yeah,
trying to propagandize that idea into us. And the idea of disclosure is the word they use for if and when the government, tells us the truth.
Yeah.
But I say it's like revelation of the method, because
There you go. That.
if there is some truth of it, they're not going to be telling it to us. It's their little version of it that they want us to believe in. As we've said before, like extraterrestrials, extra terra, if there are other beings, it's probably from the outer, beyond Antarctica. If there's extra terra out there, it's not from other worlds in outer space, which is the propaganda that they're feeding us.
Yeah.
So there could be extraterrestrials in that sense.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but there's certainly not beings from other planets that would come from outer space. And the UFO thing is part of that too. I mean, I've seen classified military vehicles that on the top, they look like a plane and they operate like a plane, but from the bottom, it looks like a saucer. So it's just a plane, but from anyone looking, they're going to see a flying saucer. So they've already got these kind of craft to fool us into this idea. And I think potentially things like the Phoenix lights or other UFO phenomena that they've done are just them kind of testing the waters, seeing if we'll believe that it's a otherworldly event and not some government testing. And we do. We tend to believe whatever the heck they tell us. The Roswell aliens, the first day it came, there's like weather balloon. It was a weather balloon. But then the next day it's like, oh no, sorry. The first day it was like, it's aliens, it's aliens. And the next day, like, no, it's a weather balloon. And then so because of the way they do it, people are like, oh, they're covering up the legitimate existence of aliens by saying it's a weather balloon, when it was probably just a weather balloon. But by doing it the revelation of the method way, it makes us skeptical and suspicious and want to believe the fantastical explanation.
Yeah.
And that's how Project Bluebeam could work. Yeah, like the X-Files. I want to believe.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, so I just wonder if they're going to do it. I mean, the whole AI thing as well is really freaky, I find. When you sort of, I'll get people sending videos or putting them on Facebook and things like that and saying, oh, look at this. And then in the comments, people are like, it's AI. Can you not tell that it's AI? And I can for the most part, but, it's so clever. And I think, what does the future hold for us when it comes to things like that as well? So not just on like videos, but in real life, in working life, and how AI and robotics are going to take over. There's not going to be a need for humans, and I guess that kind of is what they want, isn't it? Like less of us on the earth. That's a scary concept, and I wonder how far that's going to go. I'm not asking you to predict it. You're not psychic, but just what are your thoughts on? What are your thoughts on that?
Right. I mean, AI in some ways, it's a pretty cool technology in that it's able to search the whole internet for very specific questions that you couldn't find answers for. And for certain things, like, the answers are okay. But for other things, like, is the earth flat, for example, it's not gonna tell you that right up front.
Okay.
However, if you argue with it well enough and long enough, eventually most of these AIs will cave in. I've done it myself, and I've been sent many other people who have as well. Where see, like AI, unlike actual humans who will just like leave the debate, they'll leave the room, or they'll throw their hands up, or their ego will never allow them to concede.
Yeah.
AI, if you corner it well enough and long enough on singular points and then extrapolate them out, I've seen AI admit that it makes more sense that the Earth's flat and motionless and stuff like that. It'll never start there. No, you can't ask an AI that and it'll be like, oh yeah, definitely. Or unless it's been already programmed with like conspiratorial information only. But all the main full AI systems, they give you the mainstream version of everything first, and you have to argue with it to get it to admit anything alternative. and like you said, all these other things, I think in general AI is negative. That's the only positive. Everything else about it's pretty negative. I don't think that it's good for us, just like most technology. All technology in some way is kind of convenient, kind of cool,
but it has this overarching dark element that you only see when it's too late. That it's, like cell phones, for instance, they're pretty darn cool. The ability of communication and everything that we have. But because of them, now, like, you can't exist without, like, I just got my first cell phone a couple of years ago. I never wanted to own that technology. I don't like it. I don't like being at the beck and call of everything. But now, because of the way banking and internet and like two-factor authentication works, I can no longer
QR codes.
Right. I just couldn't exist anymore without having a phone. So now I need to have this stupid technology, and so does everybody else. And now they use it for all these different ways. It's just another step. Like, what's wrong with paying with cash or soon they're just not going to give that as an option anymore. And probably soon they won't have cell phones either. They're just going to go right to the implanted chip. I was just seeing an article today about thousands of people in Sweden are voluntarily implanting chips, thinking that this is such a great idea. I don't understand how people get to that level where
And you see, where that's going. I know I've heard that before, because I won't be getting one. Yeah, I'm not, and I don't know what that will mean for my life, but I won't be playing that game. And I know there'll be plenty of people like that as well. But yeah, for the most part, sometimes people, like you say, will just be signing themselves up for stuff like other things that we know about as well, without thinking about
That's
the
where I draw the
repercussions.
line, is my body.
Same.
Like, I'll buy the cell phone, but you can't put the cell phone in me. No.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So yeah, I feel the same as you. I like, just to say, I had a little go on the chat GPT trying to ask it about the Earth being flat, and we had an argument, and then I gave up. I didn't manage to corner it like you did. I just kept getting annoyed with it and going, why can't you listen to what I'm saying? Okay, you're stupid enough. You're obviously programmed. I can't be bothered with this. So yeah, like you say, it's good. It's good for certain amounts of things, but I think, ultimately there should be boundaries. And I often think, just because we can do something doesn't mean we should.
Right.
And it's all about the bottom line, isn't it, at the end of the day, when it comes to these things. So like years ago, I used to work for a big chocolate factory, and they had all the production line and everything. That production line, all the different departments, has just got like smaller and smaller with all the robots that have been coming in. And then it's the same for the offices as well. They've got less and less people because they've slimlined loads of processes, and there's just less jobs for people, which means less people are, what they're going to do with everybody.
Sure.
How are people supposed to make money to buy the products that they want everyone to make? And that's not just for the chocolate factory, that's for that goes for any type of product manufacturing or whatever. It's such a short-sighted way to be, but maybe the elites have got a plan for this lack of, or less people needed. And that's how I kind of see it all. They definitely, if I've thought of this, they've thought of this issue for the future, and that scares me to death as well, about like what will happen to us humans, or what is happening to a lot of people. And I'm seeing that with my own eyes as well, kind of. Yeah, if you get what I'm getting at. I don't know what we're allowed to sort of say here.
Right. I guess,
yeah. So I don't know, it's an interesting time. It's a scary time, I think. And then, so on the back of that, again, just conscious of time, in this scary world where, I could definitely I have ups and downs. I have good days and bad days, where you can just let the world be so heavy. It's just so heavy, and you're thinking about everything. And I sometimes can't believe that this is how life really is. Like, I feel like I got the first 40 years of my life quite nice. I believed everything I was told for the most part. And then after that, it's like just that all exploded, and now we're into a whole new kind of reality for me. But it's not new, it's how it always was. It's just that I've flicked the switch, and that's quite a burden. Like, being somebody who is aware of stuff and a critical thinker is hard. It doesn't make your life easier at all. It makes it harder. And I wouldn't choose, well, actually, I would choose truth, to be fair. I just wish this wasn't, I wish it wasn't an option between truth and lies. But I do find that some days I can feel quite weighed down about it all. So how do we go about sort of just trying to keep your chin up, basically, trying to keep positive and not feed that louche, going forward, and just making sure you can stay sane in what sometimes feels like a bit of an insane asylum. So, what do we do about that?
Right. Yeah, I mean, as you said, waking up to all these negative realities feels negative. And it's difficult to flip that script internally and feel that it's positive. But the thing that is definitely positive about it is that it's true. It's that you're seeing reality for what it is. And as I said before, if reality is negative and that causes you to be a philosophical pessimist, and that's the big barrier. I think a lot of people, they just don't want to go there within themselves. They don't want to feel those feelings. They don't want to be the flat earther, right? Just the stigma itself of being the anti-vaxxer or whatever other term that society has labeled these certain realities, it deters you from wanting to be that person, both in the eyes of other people and just within yourself, having to deal with knowing all this stuff. But I mean, for me, it's down to that gnosis idea again, and the idea of being the detective. So as a detective, you can't be ignorant of anything. You have to collect all the evidence. You have to get all the clues to figure this out. And if this is an escape realm that requires gnosis to get out of it, then
I like that.
then that's what you need. And if part of that process is feeling all the negative realities and having that be a bit of a damper on your soul, well, back to the vegan thing as well. I mean, it wasn't nice watching the slaughterhouse videos. I always knew that I was killing an animal, but to eat one. But then just really feeling it, it was different. Really watching it, really thinking about it, really feeling it. And then once I did feel it, well, I made the change. And so I think that if we look at it that way, that the negativity, the pain is a catalyst for positive change. So so withstand it for the benefit of what comes with it. You want to be knowledgeable. You want to be one of the people in the know. You don't want to be one of the people that's deluded with a, happy, fake happy bullshit, basically. It's better to be in a negative reality if that's what the truth is. At least you're living in reality. And
truth,
as hard as it is, at least you can bask in that positive, the positivity of knowing the negative realities.
No, agreed. And that's why people like you are really integral to this kind of situation as well, because of all of the research that you've done in your life. And I'm so grateful to you, honestly. It's so nice to be able to say that to you in an actual conversation instead of just in words. I genuinely mean that. And in 2021, when I came across you, honestly, like everything you've done, you cheered me up just by being able to look at your different videos, even with down to sort of the dinosaurs and evolution and all of the things that you did. I'm like, I knew this, and I got excited by knowing the truth, even though it was scary in one respect. It was kind of like, this is brilliant. I had this inkling. I'm not saying I knew everything, but sometimes you just think something's off and I'll just leave that alone. We'll just get on with life. But and then everything that you were saying, I could definitely get on board with. And I got excited, and the flat earth got me excited as well, because I'm thinking right now I've got something else to focus on, something to read about and find new information about. This is great, and everything is coming together now. See, middle, don't shake that. Everything is coming together now. I understand why the North Star is constantly in the same place, and why it feels like the sun is right near us, because it is. And there's so many other there's 200 proofs, and hopefully there'll be more soon as well.
There'll be more soon.
So I honestly, that was the best thing. I could stop watching the TV and stop listening to all of that fear propaganda and the fear campaigns and everything, I could start really thinking about things that mattered and asking those deeper questions. And it meant the world to me, honestly. So thank you so much. And I'm pretty sure I won't be the only person who thinks like that. And like I say, when you've got a partner like I do who thinks that too, so I would go running to him like, hey, look at this, and he'd be like, oh yeah. And we sit down with a cup of tea like we do in England. Cup of tea, start watching your videos and chats like this where other people are trying to support you. And it's great, Eric. It's really, really good. And everyone should support you. I've got a few of your books. This one's really good for kids. Brilliant. I'm kind of reading this one at the moment. And support you on Patreon. And there's the whole YouTube thing as well. So hopefully everybody will do their little bit just for you, because I think you're really important. I think you're one of the most important people ever, to be honest. So yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And there you go. There's part of the positivity. I experienced some of that as well as I woke up to some of these. There's an excitement, and there is a real positivity to knowing the truth. And even most of these truths are pretty negative because of the fact that we didn't know them. They're all these big lies. So that it's 50. That's a balanced aspect where you're excited and positive that you're knowing the truth, but at the same time you're like scared and fearful and negative about the future, that kind of thing. But ultimately,
you can hold both, and you can choose which one you want to focus on any given day. At least. Yeah, like sort of knowing about like the flat Earth as well, and like with the dome, that would appear to be the case, and that the stars are fixed. We're not flying through space. Oh, good. So now Armageddon isn't going to happen. We're not going to get smashed in by a comet. So that's that bullshit out the window. And you can, stop with that. Because they like to tell us that eventually we're going to get hit by a big massive comet or something, don't they? So that's not going to happen. And lots of things like that.
The sun is going to explode into some supernova and kill everything. They always say that the whole Earth is just going to die, everything. Or they have the Big Bang and they have the Big Crunch. There's another theory where it's just all going to come in on itself. So none of these things are real. So you can kind of wipe your brow and be like, okay, I don't have to worry about all that space crap that they were trying to scare me with.
Absolutely. So there's all that that comes with it as well, isn't there? So then you get that kind of that mystery that I've always been attracted to, like, hey, what's right down under the sea? What's down there? And what's above the waters above? My husband will often say that, so we'll sit outside and he'll just go, what do you reckon's up there then? And he's just pondering, and it's quite exciting, and like you say, a little bit scary, but it's better than listening to the fear porn and living the way that we were. You just got to somehow, like you said, got to learn to cope to, putting that to one side and focus on being a good human being and using the brains that you were born with and connecting with other people. So and
so being happy that you're one of the people that's in the know, and that's always going to be positive, that you know the truth, no matter how negative that truth is and feels at some point. And
that you're willing to look as well and not bury your head in the sand. There's something to be said about that, I think, too. Because I do think I have tried the flat Earth thing with a couple of people, and to be honest with you, it was received really well. I won't lie. They don't necessarily want to keep talking about it to others, but when I sort of posed the question to a couple of my friends, they were like, yeah, I can get on board with that. And I was quite surprised. I thought they'd be like, oh, don't be stupid. No. One of them in particular, she was like, it never really sat well with me at school. I just thought I was like a bit thick. But yeah, I'll go with that. Like, that's fine. And a couple of family members as well. So I don't think it's that people don't really believe it. I think it's just they're thinking, like you say, I don't want to be one of them flat earthers. But I do think the community is getting bigger as well. I do think more people are getting on board with it and realizing once you're flat, you don't go you don't go back, kind of thing.
That's right. So unless you're Jaron or Patricia or some of these other Robbie Davidson, these people that I called out as shills 10 years ago. I've been vindicated because they've all gone back to the globe, apparently. It's impossible. I mean, unless you are, just a agent and that is your role to pretend to be a flat earther for a while, garner a bunch of people under your umbrella, and then publicly come out and say, oh, I was wrong. It's definitely a globe again. no flat earther goes through the journey of figuring out all of this, and then suddenly, especially like Jaren, because of one supposed observation, celestial observation at that, has nothing to do with the terrestrial foundation. Oh, the Earth's, the Earth's not flat. Ridiculous. And then Robbie and Patricia, for example, they just followed suit after him. They said, oh, Jaren saw a 24-hour sun, allegedly. Okay, Earth's a globe. Ridiculous. What genuine flat earther would behave that way? None.
Well, they wouldn't. And that's why I wonder if they're sort of getting a bit desperate sometimes, because their attempts are just ridiculous. Like you say, no one is going to take that seriously. And I had no idea that, I discovered the other day that the recent video about the flat earth asshole. You say asshole, that sounds so much more cool than the asshole. But like, yeah, I didn't know that's who that was. Yeah. And yeah, you know, look at that. What a clown. You know, I don't think he's going to do you any harm, Eric, to be quite honest. I think it's a good thing, really, when you get someone like that who's just an idiot, really. So, yeah. Okay. So, yeah, okay, well, it's been lovely talking to you, and I really appreciate you asking me to chat to you. So thank you so much. What a privilege. And, yeah, just to say thanks for all you do. And can't think of anything else. I hope we talk again one day.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's been fun. I'm glad you accepted my invite, and I appreciate all your messages and everything which led up to this.
All right. Yeah, sorry about the massive messages. This is much better. So, okay. Well, thanks again, Eric. Take care and enjoy Cambodia, and I'll speak to you later on.
Thanks.